Yeah, lots of times we get one with that.
That's the beauty of having all of these knowledge consultants around.
Oh, Sarah?
I was really looking forward to meeting Sarah today.
Yeah, she was supposed to be here, but,
Oh, she wasn't?
well, she was going to be, but her
Tonight.
ended up at childcare. She was on.
Oh, darn it. Yeah, were you here earlier, Diane?
Yes.
Always.
Yeah.
I must be.
And I've been lucky, I've worked with Sarah for the 5 years that she's been counting, so.
Oh, Sarah, are you there? Can you hear us?
You were saying, yeah. I have to sync my calendars, my work calendar and my council calendar. I was dealing with a crisis this morning. And I looked up and it was like 11:15. I was like, oh, I can't. I have to be able to sync my calendar so that I have alarms that just go off for everything. My work phone is constantly going off all day long.
Sometimes you'd like to just not have a few minutes to.
There's times when I just, when I just want to turn it on. Yep, there is times. But if I sync them, then when I have some council things coming up, it's beeping and I'm looking and I'm saying, oh, good, okay, I'm out.
Sarah, are you there?
Hmm. I'm not really required to initial these, am I? He's just checking them, eh? I know-
Well, no, we always have
Okay, good.
two initials on there, yeah.
All right, I wasn't sure, because I've been initialing them, and then I'm like,
Yeah, no, well, just, because that's just verification if you have
yeah, okay.
looked at it kind of thing, so.
My initial is level, told you that anyways.
Is that you, Sarah? Hello? No, is it?
Gotta get better at submitting mileage sheets.
Unless I might have lost our live stream.
What?
Oh, no, they were there. And then Sarah. Hello, Sarah? Sarah, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm trying to, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just can't see you. The video isn't working, but.
Okay, just give me a moment.
Okay.
It is working just fine. I have it turned off because I have a child running around. He's probably got food all over her face or something.
Okay, as long as you can hear us, I'm gonna leave it at that, so.
Oh, I was looking forward to seeing her face. That's all right.
I was trying, but
That's okay.
it says it won't,
I know that I'll see her at some point.
not start video. Anyway, she can hear us.
I love the Zoom adventures we've been having. One of my coworkers, her daughter is like a genius and she's not 3. And so the number of times she pops into one of our Zoom meetings, sitting in her diaper waving at all of us. And then you can hear Taylor running badly. Amy, get off your computer. It's just so awesome.
We're not in COVID, but we're still using it now.
So I see, so we've got our technology stuff dealt with.
I think so, yeah.
Are we good? Okay, and are we live now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to call the meeting to order then. Please, if I could. We're just a few moments late here. We're working on technology here. All right. Okay, and I'm Wondering if everybody's had a chance to go through our previous minutes, both the 7th regular meeting that held March 15th, 2022, and a special meeting that was held March 22nd, 2022. Was there any corrections that anybody noted in those minutes? Seeing none, I will move adoption of,
Sorry, Heather, just
Sorry.
one thing that I noticed, on the special meeting notice, we had David Hoffman listed from MPE Engineering, but it was just Gavin that was here for that.
okay, and we've got listed both of them.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out. That's right, they were both to be here, but we're not able to. Okay, thank you very much. So I guess, Scott, and I just have to point out again that we do have the light that's hitting all the glass, and so I really can't make you out. I'll have to request that you, or just speak for my attention as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, and thank you for bringing that to our attention. If there's nothing else, then I will move adoption of the, I guess first I'll move adoption of the 7th regular meeting held March 15th. All in favor? Thank you. And I will move adoption of the special meeting that was held March 22nd with that amendment. All in favor? Lovely, thanks so much. Okay, we have the agenda before us. Were there any additions to the agenda or anything that anybody felt they needed to add into that? No? All right, with that, I'll call adoption of the agenda as well then, please. All in favor? Wonderful, thank you. Okay, we will move along to our delegations. And we have with us the Town Planner Diane Horvath. And thank you. Are you going to just join us up here?
Is that all right if I just do it here?
You bet.
Hopefully you'll be able to hear me. I'm just gonna slide that over there. I think it's easier to be able to see everybody than being off to the
That's
side.
Great.
So thank you.
And, yeah, we can get eye contact with everybody here.
Right. So great, thank you for having me this evening. I wanted to go through the proposed amendment we have for the Greenwood Area Structure Plan. So again, I have prepared a report for council that's in your package, but I'm just going to quickly go through it, hit some highlights on it. I know this is something that is maybe not everyone's done a bylaw amendment yet, and kind of run you through the process, why we're doing it, and then some tips as we go through the process. So again, the town is in receipt of an application to amend the existing area structure plan known as Greenwood Estates Area Structure Plan, or ASP, which is bylaw number 389-17. And it's on lands legally known as Lot 1, Block 15, Plan 061-416-36. So again, that is the larger 10-acre block that was the subject to the area structure plan, in which then the lots were created from there. So again, it doesn't match the lots, the 53 lots that are currently there. But again, just to provide council with an overview of the ASP, the ASP proposed to subdivide and develop approximately 53 single unit residential lots ranging in size from about 40 to 46 feet in width and 112 to about 115 in depth. Again, the land was rezoned to small lot residential to accommodate the proposed lot sizes, and that was done under bylaw 390-17. So it's just after the area structure plan was adopted. So again, part of that was the connection of Aspen Road to the development and the creation of a cul-de-sac, which is Greenwood Place, to the east of Aspen Road, and a through road to Aspen Rise. And Aspen Road was proposed to be called Greenwood Road. A parking plan was submitted as part of that area structure plan and indicated driveway layout plan, which included rear parking opportunities, as well as proposed available on-street visitor parking. And so that is included, that figure, I think it's 6.1, which is included in your package. There was a dedicated laneway along the north and west boundaries of the property to connect to existing laneways, and all lanes were to be paved. And finally, all lots were connected to the municipal water and wastewater systems. And a stormwater management plan was developed, which included a system of catch basins, manholes, and pipes, along with a stormwater detention, or those two dry ponds that you find that were developed on either end, on the west and east extents of the parcel. So again, what's being proposed is the applicants wish to amend specific sections of the area structure plan for the purpose of accommodating an existing oversized driveway at 348 Greenwood Place, which is lot 17, block 14, plan 1811288. The landowner was unable to obtain a waiver for the requirements to the statutory plan, is unable to obtain a waiver to the requirements because the statutory plan limits the width of driveways in the area structure plan to a maximum of 5.5 meters. And for those of us who still think in feet, that's 18 feet, which again corresponds with the maximum driveway width in the small lot residential land use district. So again, some preliminary comments on this. Again, section 633 is the section of the Municipal Government Act that tells us what we can do for an area structure plan. It provides an opportunity for municipalities to create a framework for development of an area of land through the creation of that area structure plan. And the plan is required to describe the sequence of development proposed for the area, land uses, density of population, location of transportation, and public utilities within that plan area. So there are some implications for increasing the hard surfacing on the 53 lots, which will need to be considered, and if there's any impact to the stormwater plan or the dry ponds. Again, council may wish to consider requiring the applicant to provide an updated stormwater management plan to support their application. In addition, there could be impacts to on-street parking if every driveway is widened by that 0.3 meters, which should be a consideration in moving forward. And again, I don't have any further planning comments at this time. There could be more additional comments as we put this out to the public. So part of any amendment to a statutory plan requires 3 readings of a bylaw, as well as a mandatory public hearing. So there's some bylaws that you'll pass that don't require public hearings, but under section 692 of the Municipal Government Act, it indicates that if a council is either passing a new planning document or amending an existing planning document, they must hold a public hearing. So section 230 of the Municipal Government Act lays out how and when to hold the public hearing and how a public hearing has to be conducted. So in this case, what we're probably looking to do, and what I always say with municipalities and council, is that they're always concerned that when they give first reading to a bylaw, that it somehow indicates that they're in favor of the bylaw. That's incorrect. When you are legislating or passing pieces of legislation, you have to table that, request through the bylaw so that it can then what we enter the public consultation round. So we are required to notify the people that are directly affected. So I would suggest that we would be sending out notices to everyone in that's subject to the Greenwood Area Structure Plan to let them know. We also required to post notices in a circulating newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks prior to holding the hearing, and that has to happen a minimum of 5 days before you hold the hearing. So there's all these rules that have to go on. So with that, really what I tell my councils is that this is just approving it to get into the public realm because the public doesn't know about it yet. So by no means is it looking that you approve something or you don't approve something. It's the idea of like you're putting it on the table for people to get the information, and that your job is to gather that information at the public hearing. So this is a little bit difficult in the idea that you really shouldn't be taking on any information outside of the public hearing. So if you're out walking around for the next however many weeks that we're notifying people, really you need to direct them if they have questions. They should be directing the questions to administration so we can let them know what it is. What their job is to provide you comments or to come to the public hearing and speak to it. So you really shouldn't be engaging in dialogue, and you may be looking like you're lobbying for something or you're in agreement. which puts you in a tricky situation if you come to a public hearing and you've already kind of told people you totally agree with it, and you then find out a piece of information at the public hearing that maybe changes your mind. That's the idea. You're supposed to come to the public hearing with open minds and listen to all the information that's provided. So we often say from our worst planning thing, don't do a big Google dive. Don't go looking for information on your own. Your idea is that that information needs to be brought to you. If you don't get the information at the public hearing, you can ask for more information so you can make that informed decision. But you want to make sure that all of council hears that same message. So again, if you go and find out something yourself, you discover that yourself, you're not hearing it amongst all of you. So I recommend that really even discussion between council members should be limited on this, because we don't want to bias ourselves going into the public hearing.
Can I ask you some questions on this?
Yeah.
Or did you want to?
No, I'm kind of wrapping up because I was going to go to the next part. But yeah, if there's any questions on that, because yeah, this is different. We haven't done one of these yet.
We haven't. This is brand new for us. So just for clarity, if I could. So when the initial development was proposed, they requested small lot residential, and so we brought that into bylaw, small lot residential within that area. And so now they're requesting that they would like to have the driveways, they'd like to have this amended so that it's no longer considered to be small lot residential for the purpose of the driveways?
It would still be small lot residential.
Okay.
What would happen is that we would amend this bylaw to say you can have 19-foot driveways. We would amend that figure that's attached to the bylaw itself. And then when a waiver would come forward to Municipal Planning Commission, we would look at it and say, okay, or sorry, MSDA. We look at the bylaw and go, okay, well, it says 18 feet, so it can still apply for a waiver. The issue that we're having is our higher level document, which our documents all have to be consistent with one another, says the reason we support the 18-foot driveways, we have a parking plan, we have a driveway plan, we have our drainage plan, everything is based on a certain percentage of site coverage.
Certain
And it's-
percentage of impermeable.
Surfacing, exactly. And so when we change that, that may change the amount of runoff that happens. So does that affect the storm plan, which is why, I'm recommending maybe council may need that piece of information to know what effect that has. And is it up to the applicant to provide that to you to prove that what they're asking for makes sense? So that's one option that's put out. But it wouldn't change the land use district, wouldn't change the zoning of the land. It wouldn't change any of the criteria that's currently within that, but it would allow someone to come forward then and apply for a waiver to that driveway width. And then you tend to look and say, okay, well, is there anything else that would stop that waiver from coming forward at MSDA? You'd look to the land and say, well, no, we've increased it because we've said it's okay to increase it. So therefore it may be okay to give that waiver because it's a very small waiver when it's 1 foot. I guess the question that you have to look at is you're not doing it for the one individual person. You're doing it for the 53 lots. And that has a bigger impact. So again, that would be consideration at the public hearing when you're trying to make a decision on whether or not you would approve that amendment. Does it make sense? Is it supported? Is there any detriment to it? That's what we're trying to find out through the process.
Would we be allowed to find out why the waiver for the one driveway was refused? What was the thought process on that one? Would we be allowed to access that information from you?
And I guess, it's public information because the decision was there.
Yeah.
I would suggest what it was is that, again, your statutory plan says maximum driveway is 18. And what happens is if you give it to one, you need to be prepared to give it to all 53.
Okay.
And so it isn't a one-off, like this is unusual, this would be everyone. And so I think that was, and I remember going back when we did this area structure plan, one of the things that was critically important that we run into in Sundance that we did not do, we did not require them to do a parking plan. in Sundance, and we have definitely some congestion and some parking issues and some driveway where someone would put a driveway on the right side and then the next person would put it on the right side and they do it the left side. And we have very limited on-street parking. And so that was part of ensuring that the people that were going to purchase in there knew they had a set driveway. So their houses were orientated a certain way so that we can get the maximum amount of on-street parking, so that we would have visitor parking based on cul-de-sacs and whatnot. We wanted to make sure that people could deal with that. We also know that 18 feet, you can get 2 cars on an 18-foot wide driveway. So again, what makes sense, what's reasonable, and what someone might want, again, is up to council. So again, any of the plans, as you said, they're not, they can be amended. Anyone can apply to amend. Yourself as council can say, hey, we decided we want to amend the land use file, we want to amend the MDP, we want to amend this, we want to rescind it completely. It's up to you, but there is a process that has to go through, and that's sort of where we're at.
So I guess my next question, if we were considering proceeding forward with this, we're not bound to proceed forward with this, or are we bound?
I would say you're bound to proceed forward with it,
Okay.
because again, otherwise, because to me, you don't have any information.
Yeah.
So you're almost like predetermining what the outcome is without actually asking the public and actually getting that feedback.
Yeah.
So I always say to municipalities, I mean, people often say, there's a fee associated with the process, so you're paying for the process. You're not paying for an approval or an outcome. You're paying to go through the legislative
It's a
process.
very resource intensive
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Oh, yes, I think it's all well and good to talk about the process, and it's great. And I think we're talking about a tiny little piece of concrete that can easily have been removed if they wanted to, be in compliance. And so, quite honestly, I feel like we should put as much burden upon the applicant as is reasonable, and including the stormwater management plan update to support their application. So that's what I would like to suggest.
I think, I agree with you, but I would say that, I would reword it, because I'm not sure that it's placing burden on them rather than responsibility. Because initially, when we went into this project, and understanding the limitations of that location, it was a little bit of a confined location, and we really provided a lot of opportunity for them to put in, these small lots. So I would say perhaps it's more about responsibility, because we had to be careful in ensuring that we did have a really good water management plan and we did have a good parking plan. So if they're proposing to change those things with these amendments, that we request any of those plans that were brought forward to us that are going to be impacted, that they would provide us with an update, just to make it viable for them, to ensure that it is viable. Because I know in Sundance, you're right, and we've learned from that. And we have neighbors fighting neighbors, and people from across the street are calling, and right? And it's about parking. Really, you just don't have parking there, right? So it's a whole. Did anybody have any other? Certainly.
So at this point, really, I mean, we're not talking about our views on it at all, as you stated, we're just kind of approving
Yep.
it to go to the public hearing.
And then you would ask, like, under the recommended actions, is there information at this point that you feel that you need? And if that would be that you want the updated stormwater plan, then it would be something we would want to communicate to the applicants so that they understand that we need to get that piece of information. And then I probably know that would probably take at least 30 days to 60 days. We probably wouldn't want to set a public hearing until we receive that information, so that we have that information to our engineers so they can review it and then bring that recommendation back that maybe there is no implication to it. But again, when you're making that kind of a decision on hard surfacing, I don't think you want to guess on it. So that is why I placed the recommendation that you ask for that piece of information. We could go through the process and get through the public hearing and then request a piece of information, and then we'd have to recess the public hearing for that particular length of time. I think it's important that if it's deemed necessary as an information requirement prior to the public hearing, that you get that and let them go through the process and make that determination if they want to undertake that. If they don't wish to, then they may pull their application.
Certainly.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, Diane. Because I think that it's important to note that it could be recessed if they don't get that information first, so that would be another reason to ask for it. I initially was leaning toward option 2 because I didn't want to place unnecessary burden on the homeowners as they live next to a drive home. So it's good to know that that information is relevant for that. So I think that I would like to make that motion. Is that something we can do, or did you have a comment?
I just got a quick comment here. Do we know, have there been previous requests for wider driveways in that area to begin with, or in any of the areas, I guess, where we have maybe 4 foot wide? Maybe that's a silly question, but.
No, there's always, in every municipality, if the driveway width is 20, someone wants 25. If it's 25, they want 35. If it's 35, they want 45.
I guess I'm just trying to
And-
think of how big of a can of worms it would be, like if 2/3 of the neighborhood would want to go wider.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's something that they have to think about too, that if 2/3 of them want to go wider, and if there's a certain width that they want to go to, well, then they need to understand that they may need to dig a bigger storm pond and take on that responsibility. So, everything and anything is possible. It's just at what cost and at who's to bear that cost, and whether or not they want to dig up those storm ponds with the irrigation and redo the whole thing. That may be a burden that they, a 2 foot wide driveway extra may not be worth that.
Yeah.
And
I think it's really important to note, if I could, I know that any of our land use bylaws, particularly in relation to permeable versus non-permeable surfacing, is really all about our water management. We have had incidents in the past where we have been sandbagging areas. And so, and of course, we're getting more extreme weather patterns, so we have to really pay attention to that. That's something that we really need to pay attention to. Certainly.
And I mean, I think, I don't know if I want to bring this up, maybe I do, but I mean, people are already kind of doing some of that down there. If you drive down there, you can see some people have been pouring extra wide sections of sidewalk and so on, right? But there are other options available than just going through this process. I mean, an easy one would say you could put a permeable surface that you park a car on, potentially. Right, there are permeable parking, like asphalts and stuff like that are stormwater friendly. So other ideas out there too. But
There are.
this is what they're asking for, so.
And as I'm looking at the design, I'm wondering if it isn't for aesthetics. It's similar to a request that's come forward before, because it was aesthetically pleasing to see a certain layout, and I can't guess that. I'm just wondering if that isn't. Yeah. So I apologize. I do believe that I think Councillor Portrait. Did you start to make the motion and then
Councillor Florence did.
Councillor Portrait said, I thought you started it
I was
and then
just-
you stepped back for a
I was
moment.
just saying my opinion.
Okay. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. So did you wish to make?
Yes, yeah. Can I just read out option number 1? Okay, so I move that the town of Cohurst provides first reading for bylaw 43-22 and request that the applicant submit an updated stormwater management plan to support their application. Upon receipt of the updated plan and review by the town's engineer, place a notice of public hearing in accordance with sections 230, 606, 606.1, and 692. Notify all landowners subject to the Greenwood Estates area structure plan, relevant government departments and agencies, and schedule a public hearing.
Thank you. Was there any further discussion on that? May I just ask a quick question before we move forward with this? I just would like to ask of you, Diane, what impact do you think this might have on a parking plan, the existing parking plan?
can I plead the fifth? I don't honestly know.
Yeah.
It's difficult to determine that. And also a lot of the parking plans, for example, are based on a certain size car, so again, long-term, if you redid the diagram and added the extra to every single driveway on either, one side or the other, whether or not that would impact, the actual parking space, it's difficult.
May I suggest, Heather, we have parking standards in our land use bylaw, which we could follow as a, but I think that would be a good yardstick to measure the impact.
Or I suppose when we're having a public hearing, that we do have the parking plan in front of us.
Yeah.
Ensure that they're still meeting that plan.
And probably on a different size than what's here, because I didn't bring my glasses to look. This one's pretty tiny. I think there may be one that's actually dimensioned. I will have to go back through some of the information. But I know the one that ended up in the final plan just has little teeny tiny cars on it. So
Yeah, some scales, some dimensions.
Yeah.
would help us.
It would, yeah. Thank you. So, Councillor Ackman, are you comfortable moving forward with the vote, or did you have any? All right. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add, or? Okay, then I will call the question. We have before us motion. Councillor Points, can you read your motion?
I didn't read the motion.
No, I'm asking, are you able to read your motion so we can vote on it?
Oh, I did read the motion. I made the motion already.
Yeah, she actually read the full option.
Okay. So you are moving that Council of Town Colhurst provides first reading for bylaw 433-22.
Yep.
And that's approving option 1. Okay, all in favor? Wonderful, thank you. Now, did you indicate that we are to go to second reading today, or we're just leaving it right here now? And
This,
then
what'll
amend
happen
that
is we
information?
will let the applicant know that they received first reading and that this is the piece of information that is required, and work with them to determine if they're, how they would provide that information. And then once they get it to us, then we'll more than likely come back and let you know when the public hearing is going to be. So, okay.
All right, certainly.
Mr. Mayor, so this motion, I think, is made so that we're going to give the first reading, but there still is the bylaw to give the first reading of the bylaw, so we would still physically give the bylaw first reading at that point.
Okay. Once we receive the information that we're looking for, then we,
No, we could, this motion says what we're doing.
You
but
probably
we
need to
still
do it in
have
the
give
bylaw section.
First reading.
Yeah. So there's probably further down the thing. You may have to do the same way, but yes, that makes sense.
thank you. I think Lander's bylaw stuff is, I need to be more on top of it. Thank you.
Well, if we get out of COVID and things get much more active, then you'll probably get to be, back into it where this are happening more than once every 3 or 4 years. So,
All right, certainly, Councillor Points.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for the awesome orientation the other day. It was really cool to see all the info put out there, and you guys were very passionate about it, so it was very cool to take that in. I was sitting with Deputy Mayor Caldwell, and we were having a good time. So
That's
it was
good.
nice.
I'm glad. I know that I did see all of you throughout the different sessions, so it was really nice to have representation from my municipality. It was like, yeah, my guys are interested. So
And really, sitting in the front rows, right? Sitting in the front rows with a giant gap between us and the rest of it. We're the keeners in the crowd. Yeah, thank you. You're welcome to stay, but if you need to get going.
I actually have to prep for another meeting, so
All right.
I'm going to go home and do some more.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and so we have citizens without formal notice. Did we have citizen? Certainly.
I do this time.
Absolutely.
Kind of, I'm sure about this.
Stan, did you want to sit up at the table there, or you?
I'm good here, is that right?
All right. Thanks, Ben.
See ya.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here to ask council to consider rescinding the 1% increase of the local access fee that was implemented at your first council meeting. I believe our utility bills have increased substantially of late. With the April 1st increase in the carbon tax, distribution fees, as well as gas and electric rates increasing. These fees are added on our utility bills as basically taxes. The close to 100,000 that is collected is not used to maintain the gas and electrical infrastructure. The utility provider still maintains the gas and electrical lines. These fees or taxes are placed into general reserves for the town. Town recently explained on their website that these fees are charged to Fortis, Alberta. I feel that is a bit misleading as they appear on our utility bills and are charged directly to the home or business owner. I think that raising the local access fees just because other municipalities have is basically a tax grab. I would like to see a rescinding of the 1% fee and possibly in the future, even a small reduction. To reduce the burden on home and business owners. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you for that. I think, Leslie, you've taken careful minutes on that request, so that it can be part of our formal minutes. And we will have some discussion on this topic. Okay, I don't know. CAO Howda, can you provide some direction? Should we be having this conversation right now or carry that forward?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We can carry it forward. I will say that there are guidelines as to when we can increase this. So once a year, we're given the opportunity to increase, decrease, or hold. And then and generally that comes up in September-ish, September, October. And if we do it at the right times, it has to go through the Alberta Utilities Commission. If we are raising or lowering or whatever, which this one as well was publicly put out, for public to see that we were increasing it by that 1%. And because we didn't get it in time for November because of, the change in council and that type of stuff, this one kicked in as of November 1st. So otherwise it would have been a January 1st scenario doing in. So like I say, we are given the opportunity by our franchise agreements with ATCO and Fortis, because they both have this option in them, to look at those fees on an annual basis. So to do it in between, I don't believe we'd have the opportunity until that annual so-called situation.
Councillor Florence?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for bringing this forward. It's a really important subject. I wanted to mention that we are planning some upcoming engagement sessions as well, and we'll be gathering information like this from residents. As you mentioned, the increase in higher bills, I think we're all feeling that same, and I think that's very relevant. I had done some digging on this just since it's been put out, and kind of what I found is exactly what CAO Howda indicated, is that it's kind of only to be looked at on an annual basis. And so, yeah, but I think it's important to have this feedback, so I really appreciate you bringing this forward, Sam. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask, I don't suppose you have in front of you when the last time was that we did an increase on that? My memory serves me that we kept it frozen in place for a period of years, but I'm not sure. Certainly.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Traditionally, the last 2 or 3 years, I know we've either held or have lowered it in both cases. So it's been a while since we actually did increase it. It's been held or lowered. So.
And did you have any rationale for why we looked at that?
No, I guess the rationale was just that, we have the opportunity where, it is a means to generate some revenue. And it does, basically it is a grant in lieu that you're collecting on behalf of Fortis and ATCO for their pipelines, their wires and their poles, et cetera, that type of
It's
stuff.
a linear tax, right?
In a sense it is, yeah. It's a grant in lieu almost is what it is. And basically, it does apply to, as indicated, all utility bills are all gas bills in both cases. So in some cases it does, renters, exempt properties, that type of stuff. You generate some revenue from some of those sources as well as just from straight, house tax or business tax type scenarios. So, and if you look at the average like it does, we've looked at what other communities around us are paying that give us kind of that southern rider. Generally, we look at this, and we're definitely on the low end of the scale. I think we can do, in one of them, we can go up to 20%, and the other one 18% or something. So, and a lot of places are 12 to 15% or better in their cases. So we're not definitely on the high side of things. And like I say, we have lowered it the past couple of years, traditionally, or held it. So.
And so can I ask then, I guess before we even have a discussion about whether we would make that choice or not, I guess maybe we can just get confirmation as to whether we even could or not. At this point, make that decision. And you're indicating, Councillor Florence, that what you've looked into it appears that we may not be able to.
From what I've seen, but again, CEO had a flip from what you were saying about the,
We have agreements in place, like I know we just signed one with Fortis or ATCO, it's a 20-year agreement, so it does provide that once a year. I think that's the ATCO one we just signed recently, and Fortis is, a little bit older, but again, we have agreements in place and it does provide for that annual
Yeah.
increase, decrease, or, that we notify that there is no increase, so.
Mhm.
And it does come, like I say, September, late August, September, October, when we get the notice from them to have us that opportunity.
Councillor Ackerman?
Yeah, I was hoping I'd be able to get a little bit more clarification on just kind of, I guess, where these fees are useful, because it sounds like if there was an issue with infrastructure or something, Fortis would be coming in and kind of handling their raw infrastructure, but is there any additional costs that would be left behind towards the municipality? Is there any like landscaping or anything like that? Or I guess I'm just trying to see where this fee would come in to actually help in this situation, or if it's something that Fortis is covering the cost of, or if it's something that, there's maybe costs that we don't necessarily see that are pushed back on the municipality and we're just kind of covering those. I don't know if we can get a little clarification on that.
Certainly.
Well, you can go first.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Well, generally, if they do any installations or improvements or that type of stuff, similar to us doing any work or whatever, you generally bring it to a like as was condition prior to. But in some cases, there is having our guys, be available to see some of the trenching and that type of stuff when they're putting it in and oversee, which is somewhat a cost of ours. And like you say, basically it is a grant in lieu for their facilities in town is really what the cause of it is. ATCO, we have the option of both a linear or a tax as well as a franchise fee. We can do both. We chose just to do the franchise fee, so.
Thank you. Councillor Woodard?
I mean, I don't mind looking at it again, but I do feel like, we have one of the lowest franchise fees in the area when compared with Lethbridge, which is 5 times ours. They're at 25%. And, any of the
We're at 5.
we're at 5, right? They're 5 times us. So when people are complaining about their utility bills, I saw one comment on Facebook about, well, I paid more in utilities in Colors than I paid in Lethbridge. Well, I think there's a lot of factors that go into your utility bill. Like, what is your insulation factor on your walls? Do you leave your door open? I don't know, there's numerous factors that go into it. And what we're talking about is a very, very tiny percentage of that is distributed more equitably by taxing, I think by more equitably taxing the entire base of the properties in Colhurst, not just property taxes, right? So I think it helps balance the revenue stream a little better in that regard. So I'm not suggesting that we don't look at it, but if you guys want to look at it, I'm open to it. I just feel like it's we are doing well, I think, in terms of our tax collection, and this is a tax. Maybe we just need to do a better job at explaining to the residents. And I know when we just posted, it's going up by 1%. There's of course an increase. That is an increase. It is, and but if we adjust our other taxes, we have to balance the budget, right? So if we delete this entirely, then we're going to have to make it up in different regards. And then you have properties that don't pay taxes, property taxes, getting not contributing, I guess, to our services, right?
Yeah.
So
I appreciate what you're saying. Thank you.
yeah, so I feel like it gives a more balanced approach is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so I think, we'll probably, you've raised something that's going to generate some good conversation. And I think that we will continue to have some of this conversation. I think we may look into it just to see what are our options, because honestly, before we go into having large conversations, it may not even be an option for us to be able to change it this time. What I'm hearing, it sounds as though that's the case. And then that would just preclude any conversation about whether we think there's value to remove it or not, right? But your ask will definitely be on our minds next year. I know that in council in the past, we have, as the Ohio indicated, we have either held it steady or lowered it when times are a little bit tough. And I suspect that we just sort of try to accommodate a small change right now and in my mind, it always has been equivalent to sort of like a linear tax. All properties in our community, including our utility lines and those kinds of, underground services and everything, be some form of tax, right? So, yeah. Good conversation. But you will check into that, hey, Kim?
Yeah, I'll
Just to
double
see.
check our agreements to see if there's an option for other than the once a year, but I'm pretty sure it's once a year.
Once a year, yeah. But if we have a confirmation on that, good. Alrighty?
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you stepping forward and bringing this up. I love it when community members do engage with us. So like Councillor Florence as well, and everybody else here actually. I mean, I think that's why we're about to go into a big community engagement process. All right. The next item we have before us, we have business arising from the previous minutes. And that would be our Natural Resources Conservation Board decision. And I suppose, are you going to take that away for us? Should we have kept Diane here for this, or would she have been any help?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Well, she was our representative when this
Yeah.
hearing was held, but basically this is just a copy of the decision that was done by the Double H Feeders application. And if you go kind of to the last page, I mean, it said, that basically was approved,
They've approved it.
subject to the conditions as listed there, so.
Yeah.
And then talking with Diane, it was a full day session, she said, and all kinds of stuff being brought forward that some had merit, some really didn't, sort of thing, and some were just,
Okay.
coming forward with whatever reasons, but at the end of the day, subject to these conditions, they were approved to proceed with their.
Did you have a bit of a summary on the conditions? I'm just trying to pull it up here.
Um,
And any of these conditions have an impact on us. First off, can you just let me, the distance from our community, is it about 1 kilometer from us? This parcel of land here? I believe that's about the distance, isn't it?
Yes, I suppose it'd be a kilometer, I don't know exactly where offhand, but,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that basically as indicated with the original application was brought forward to council, the existing barn, the one barn was being decommissioned, which was the
Yeah.
closest to the town, and
That's
this
right.
was moving further. So, in terms of that, I mean, and there were no, because of where they're located, the prevailing winds, that type of stuff don't come across the town, they can go away from the town, that type of thing. So, I mean, and they've talked about here some of their conditions dealing with their manure storage, that it has to be dealt with appropriately and spread, again, within certain hour periods here and that type of stuff. So, so really, I think the effects to the town are pretty minimized by the decision that's been here. And that was the basic decision that council had with the initial information that we provided to the hearing and our decision.
As long as the barn was being decommissioned that was closest to us, the CFO barn.
Yeah.
And so this decision to allow another build does not mean that they're building along with the barn that's closest to us. They are still
That has to
decommissioning
be decommissioned, and it's a bigger enhanced capacity with,
a larger capacity than their original ask. Is that correct? Okay.
well, yeah, they were looking to double or whatever their size, quite a bit
Yeah,
or whatever.
Was
but-
it 65,000 and then they're jumping to 120 something?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we're gonna have a bunch of chickens in our neighborhood. Yeah, Councillor Ackerman?
Yeah, the report says it's about 1.8 kilometers northeast of town.
Oh, it's 1.8 kilometers, thank you. I knew I'd read something kilometer in there, but it's quite a lengthy report, thank you. Councillor Ackerman? Yeah, did anybody have any other questions or comments on that, or, I mean, it's a done deal, so I suspect at this point, we just hope that the wind stays.
I'm very pleased with the outcome of this decision, and I wish them very much success in their new endeavor. I was just wondering, we don't need to make a motion for this, do we?
No, we don't, no.
Awesome.
It's just, yeah, it would just be for information at this point, right? They requested our feedback and we gave our feedback, expressing no concern with the decommissioning of that initial barn. All righty. Thank you. All right, we have the next item before us then, the letter, I guess, from the National Police Federation. Is that what we have here? So I'm bouncing from item to item here. Okay, and can you speak to that, CEO Pablo, please?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. So again, just some further, I guess, information and looking for support for maintaining the RCMP as opposed to an Alberta Provincial Police Force. This is from obviously on behalf of the National Police Federation that have provided this. So the letter basically is asking for if you would support their call to action. And they've attached a stakeholder sign-on that they're looking to put out at the end or mid-April here to make their case that, work with improve the current policing services with the RCMP, social services, other resources within the justice system as opposed to going a full provincial police force type thing. So I don't know if we're in a position that we want to support it that strongly or not, but I mean, we've had obviously both sides. I think recently council members were at presentations from both keeping the RCMP to the provincial side of things, going the provincial police force, and we've had some discussions at previous meetings. And this is just further pushing it as I guess those decisions are still not 100% made, but are coming forward at some point. So.
Certainly, if I could, the letter that we did send to the province did indicate this very same thing, though, if I might, right? We did request that the funds that they were looking at investing would be better invested into sort of upgrading services of the RCMP. It sounds as though from what you're saying, you feel like this might be a little bit of a strong response, or?
Well, no, it's another push, I guess, from the National Police Federation in making the case to the province, which is, from the national side, obviously looking at the RCMP, because the RCMP is a national police force as opposed to provincial.
Yeah.
And just sort of saying on the basis of the information that's been provided, studies, the figures, the numbers that are given in terms of the costs, that maybe not all the proper information has even been divulged to municipalities to make the decision.
From the province.
But I think we've seen a number of letters of support coming at various council meetings in the past, where a number of municipalities are, definitely indicating support for keeping the RCMP. But there may be reasons to go the other way too, and I think this is a stronger push to keep that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would like to move that we add our names to this letter and submit it. I think it does add a voice to have us speaking from the federal as well as the provincial. So it is something we've already sent a letter on, but I think it's another avenue that we can lend our support to. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. Did anybody have any comments on that, or any discussion on that one? Councillor Ackerman?
Yeah, I think personally, we all kind of are in agreement here. I just wish we would have had a chance to kind of speak to the community a little bit more, because we can make this decision and say, we think this is in our best interest, but, is that reflective of the actual residents in town? It's kind of hard to say, right?
You're right, and it is a difficult decision, because we are in receipt of information regarding how much it costs to roll this out. And we're receiving information regarding sort of currently what we pay for the RCMP. So we have all of these facts at hand, and we've been going to all of these different sessions, so we have the knowledge to be able to make a decision. It would be difficult to really sort of, I guess, to summarize it for that community engagement that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is a big decision, but, and at some point, we're gonna have a conversation about when we're making decisions, how many do we want community engagement on, right? Certainly, Councillor Porter.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to say also that those sessions were open to the public. They were not exclusive to council members. All the information is available on their website. So we haven't received any letters in support or against from community members. This was on our agenda. I don't know. I know there are concerns with policing in our community, and I don't know that switching to provincial would address any of those. Right? We've not heard any information to suggest that, right?
Yeah,
So-
and investing the funds that they're planning on spending on provincial police, investing funds back into the RCMP may well address those concerns a little bit
Yes.
better, I think. It would be able to increase the boots on the ground, it would be able to increase, we have been, since I've been on council, we have been chronically short-staffed in our regional RCMP. They have a number of policies in place that, if a member leaves for maternity leave, they don't pull somebody in to replace that member. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different policies they have in place that just kind of keep them chronically short-staffed, right? And so, and it is budgetary, right? So, if anybody has any other comments on this, if not, I will call the question then. Did you want to read that out?
Yes, I move that the council of the town of Coalhurst hereby authorize administration to sign on to the call to action to call the Alberta government to stop the efforts and investment to advance the creation of provincial police service and instead invest in resources to improve our current RCMP services as proposed by the National Police Federation.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. All right, and the next item that we have before us is the Alberta Emergency Management Agency review. And CA Hunter?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So basically, I did indicate that I've met recently with Field Officer Gary Zioba in terms of AEMA, or Emergency Management Agency. It's kind of a biannual review that they do as part of that process. And as indicated at the time, obviously, he's aware, and council's aware as well, that at the present time we don't have a fully functioning dam. We don't have a deputy dam, and we were just in the process of dealing with our fire department in terms of interim fire chief and that type of stuff, which we'll be discussing a little bit further later on here. As well, we were also in some discussions in terms of a regional emergency management scenario. There was a meeting held that I reported on not too long ago, and in fact, I think even, I can't remember if it was Councillor Florence or the mayor and myself that had met with the county in terms of that discussion a little bit. It was moving along pretty good, and then there was some COVID hiccups, I guess, that got in the way of some of the main players that were working on the actual coming up with the results of the survey and putting together the plan. That's now been kind of put back on track, and actually 2 weeks from today, there is another meeting of CAOs to look at the plan as a result of that survey and moving that forward. And you can sort of see even in this review report that certainly Gary's indicating as well that, to take a look at that regional approach. He's indicating that it has worked fairly well in a number of places and could perhaps work here, depending on the model that they present to us. So obviously we do have some shortcomings at the present time we're aware of. We're working on towards that, and hopefully we'll, get corrected and up and going certainly better within the next few months here. I would suspect if we get that regional scenario, if it looks good. And other than that, I guess I know there was talk about even the emergency advisory committee perhaps meeting. I was hoping that, as a result of that regional thing, we'd have a little bit more information on that to, discuss at that time. And obviously, like I say, it's now scheduled for 2 weeks from today, so we can have a look at where that goes, and then we start coming to council from there at that point. So, but this is his report as kindly as he could put it, as he said when he met with us. He said, well, our situation. He said, well, I won't be too rough on you, but so.
It's a good thing that's him not being too rough on us. Certainly, who was first there? Was it Councillor Porter?
Oh, yeah, I think you did the miracle. CAO had I'm not sure who I believe we all took the municipal elected officials course within 90 days. Well, I know I did, and I believe most of us did, so I'm curious as to why that would be a no.
He's indicating 2 of the 5.
2 of the 5 have not.
2 of the 5 had not. I don't believe that I did. But I've taken it before, have I not? Is he on it?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I don't believe Deputy Mayor Caldwell has.
I didn't take it this year
Yeah, but
because I was looking at it, I thought I had done it before.
it was a new requirement about 2-3 years ago, I think, that it was sort of said, and it was kind of right before kind of the election sort of things, so, and COVID act, it was right before COVID. And so there was kind of provision made that they couldn't do sort of the in-person sort of training, and even some of the online stuff was kind of minimized, so they kind of forgave it for a year. But, you know, with the recent elections, there was the 90-day period that council members were to have it. And based on the information that Kyle and myself had at the time, and certificates on file, we just have a 2 out of 5 at the present time, so if there's a third one, definitely, you know, 3 out of 5, but I don't believe the mayor has it either, that I'm aware of.
That's a little bit of an embarrassment.
But
That the mayor and the deputy mayor have not taken a mandatory
I'm not trying to point that out.
course. Well, I think you just did.
Sorry. I'm pretty sure Lindsay was taking it, but
She talked about it, but
She talked about it.
I haven't received a certificate.
do I need to send the certificate to you, or you have mine?
I don't, I think I just have Councillor Ackerman's and Councillor Florence, I
I
believe.
am holding my hand down so I don't put my thumb on my nose
Well, apparently I'm
and
not.
wave my finger at you guys.
Apparently I don't count either, because I didn't submit it.
Councillor Florence?
I just, I wanted to comment on that with the Emergency Advisory Committee. Can we call a meeting that, I know, and you were talking about some of that regional stuff and having that in place beforehand, but, like, as per the MGA and new changes and everything, and even from his requirements here, it's talking about, that the Emergency Committee provides that guidance to the Emergency Management Agency. So, given that it's, I mean, we're getting into summertime and we're coming into like drought year,
We could,
I agree with you, we need to get together.
is it, cause there's two council appointments on that, right? And then, right, okay.
Yeah, that's myself and you, and then who else stepped onto that? Did we have Chris?
Chris and Lisa Van Vliet and Brody, I think.
Oh, did Brody join that as well? Okay.
Yeah, there's 2 council and 3 members at large
Okay.
on there, so.
And do you have that course in front of you, is that what?
Yeah, no, I
Hold on.
pulled up my certificate, there it is.
All right, are you able to just
Just
send
copy
me?
your email.
Send me- Is that course still open to be taken?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Well, you have to like email this guy, and then they give you access, and then they email you again, and then
I see.
it's very convoluted.
Yeah, there's either the online version or there is even some in-person ones as well that are available.
Yeah.
They can send it to you once.
Yeah. If you can send me information, I'll email the guy and get going on it. Yeah, sure, thank you. Yeah. Sorry, in all of the courses that were coming up, I thought that I had already taken that, and so I do have to apologize. Certainly, Councillor Ackerman?
Yeah, just a comment on this municipal emergency plan. I do think that it's important, especially with kind of the results or the personal things that I've seen today. I do think that it's important to be prepared for things. So I would like to see if we can get a little more traction on that and just kind of have everything at least ready and kind of brought out to the community so everyone knows what's going on. You never know when disaster is going to strike, right? So it's important to be ready, have your ducks in a line.
And really, and you're absolutely right, we have in the past been very good at sending out communication to our community. COVID has changed that, and we have to jump back up again, right? Like, we've got to pull ourselves out of this and get back into those things again. So I guess we can start out with the advisory committee and then go forward. I was also, if it came up about sheltering in place, and I was wondering if we had any of those. Do we have any of those booklets left?
I'm not sure.
You don't know if they're in a box somewhere in our basement. That came up again as something that we should look at doing again. And I don't know if we can have conversations with Fortis and see if they can help us out with some of this stuff. Because you're right, I mean, getting information out to our community, we need to come up with some kind of an emergency management pamphlet. And, we need to get some, Orsted indicated that they're quite happy to map us an evacuation route that we can put onto our website. And but we'll do this. We'll do this at the advisory committee. We'll have a meeting and come up with some of that kind of stuff. Because, yeah, we're coming up to what they call now official fire seasons, right? I mean, I think that's, and you're right, Councillor Ackerman, you, today was a bit of an eye-opener for you, so. Yeah, good. Was there any more conversation that anybody wanted to have on that? I think it's just suffice to say that we didn't do that great with it, and I'm grateful that he was gentle, if this is him being gentle. And I guess it's just a kind of kick in the butt. We need to move forward with some stuff towards this. Okay, I guess we'll do that by email, will we? Will you shoot an email some proposed dates?
Yeah.
I have to ask you though, to please just be conscious of, I work during the daytime. I know that Chris does, I know that Brody does, I know that Deb does. If we can look at an evening meeting, I understand that your preference is not to have evening meetings, but all of your members of that committee are all work during the daytime. And when it's absolutely necessary, I'm okay. But when I leave work to come to council things, I'm frequently losing revenue. So it's kind, so I just could ask that, please. Alrighty, good. Okay, so we have before us, our next item that we have before us is the disc golf course, approval of design and installation. At a previous meeting, we did approve the purchase or the ordering of the baskets. Were they able to be ordered in time?
Well, they're ordered, so.
They're ordered, so we suspect we won't be seeing any delay then. I think.
No, I mean, I think they said maximum 6 weeks delivery, but possibly quicker, so.
Well, that's wonderful. I know that there's some concern in the timelines on that if we waited for, I think, we would have seen some delays, so I appreciate that, thank you. So, so we had a lot of conversation about the proposed disc golf course. You have the proposal in your package before you. Does everybody have that?
Yep.
Okay. And was there any discussion on that? Did anybody want to have any, certainly a CA on that?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So basically, as indicated, I mean, what's proposed here is a 21-hole course shown at the different locations that are listed there. Obviously, as indicated, there is talk that potentially at the wetlands area, some of the holes could be moved there, or maybe even additional holes if you really, chose to go that way. Didn't seem to be too onerous of a task to relocate if we had to, from my discussions with, personnel involved in the discussion. And I think, as indicated in there, previously I've said that the Director of Operations and myself had looked at a couple of options with some of the players involved in designing this course. We did suggest a few spots that, location-wise, that were maybe either too close to residences or for other reasons that just didn't seem appropriate. They have revised it on the basis of our discussions. This is the most revised course that they came up with. At that time, they'd also not spoken with the Halcyon Regional Schools in terms of approval to go on their site, as indicated there as well, but they now have received that approval to go on those sites as indicated. And obviously, even in terms of the elementary school there is proposed, I mean, again, there, if it happens that, somewhere down the road, that's utilized as a school site or something to that effect, obviously, again, poles can be moved and put from there, so. So as far as, like I say, baskets are ordered, as far as, it does indicate in here, installation, pretty much talks about the town Public Works sort of doing most of it, from what I understand. I have spoke with our Director of Operations, who has indicated not too onerous of a task for them to do these poles. They need perhaps some equipment or something, in terms of a post hole digger, or they may have to borrow something to that effect. But other than that, they've indicated that they possibly could accommodate it within their schedule, unless they get some summer staff and that type of stuff in place.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. And in looking at the plan, I know that there was some discussion with the person, the group that brought forward the proposal, the Parks and Rec Committee, the same folks that built our spray park. They brought the proposal forward, and if you take a look at the map, they show there's a couple goals that they wanted to hit with this. One is they wanted to encourage people to walk throughout the community to take part. The other goal that they wanted to hit was they wanted to have even just a couple of I guess, what do they call holes? I don't know, disc golf holes, baskets in different parks around the community, so that if, so that neighbors could just go out and just sort of have a couple rounds, just play a few holes and visit, just for people to come out together. And that kind of appealed to me. That piece of it appealed to me, that it was a combination of both. And I know that the discussion was down at, the new park.
Sundance.
Thank you, down in the Sundance Park. Those 3 holes were really just kind of an idea of temporary placeholders while they were waiting for the stormwater, our new naturalized stormwater pond. But if they find that they're in use there, then they will just add to them. If they find that people are coming up from the neighborhood to go into that park and use them there, then they'll just add more.
That's a good question.
Councilor Butcher here.
Maybe this is a question for CAO Huda, but does council typically approve like locations of every bench and garbage can and in corners? I'm just curious.
Gosh, we don't know.
Okay. So who makes that decision then?
Public Works.
Public Works.
And Public Works was a big part of helping to put together this design as well. But because this is recreation, it maybe looks a little bit, are you making the comparison?
I'm just asking about processes here, and if we should even be, if council should be involved in this granularity, I guess. In general, I think we all approve the we all like having a disc golf course brought to colors, and I think it's maybe just some of these small details that need to be worked out if there's concerns, let's say. And I'm wondering if that can be handled by Public Works as it typically has been. That's just my thoughts on it. I'm not sure that we need to approve the design more as more of approve Public Works or approve administration to proceed with this concept.
I love where you're going with this. Your concern is that we're becoming too operational.
Yeah.
I
I think we need to stay out of that because that's the role of administration, so.
Thank you for that. Certainly, Councilor Lawrence.
Interesting comments, Councilor Fortune. I guess, and I love the stage questions, but I am going to bring up what I brought up originally at our special meeting is that, and just because of the nature of how this came about, is that there was a lot of input on the design. The design as it is right now has not been put out to the public. And to me, I could foresee that being a problem if, there's a few of them that are right behind my house, for instance. I'm happy about it, but, we're really not giving people an opportunity to speak to the design. And so I appreciate your comments about a bench or a garbage can, but I think when it came to bigger things like, park design or, subdivision designs or things like that affect the entire community, that there is input in that. And I mean, if it goes through, that's fine. But I think that even talking to Diana, I'd asked her a question off the record before we started about just best practices. And that was something that she had mentioned was best practices. And so that would be my comment.
Certainly, Councilor Fortune.
I don't disagree with sharing with the public. I just think in a matter of process for like a development permit, for example, it's circulated for 21 days to everybody who's affected, every landowner is adjacent to it, right? I wonder if a process like that, if we can approve this to go ahead, that administration can initiate that process and to those residents, if they have concerns, they can bring them feedback, right? I'm trying to steer us away from getting us involved in the granularity of it, right? So,
I appreciate that.
but I don't disagree with having public
So-
engagement at all.
Yeah. So you're proposing that any residents that might be impacted by the location of these be notified with an opportunity for feedback?
Yeah.
Okay. Certainly, Councilman Ackerman.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to add, if these are put in, like a lot of the other disc golf courses where they have essentially a pipe that's a sleeve and then they'll have the basket in there, and they usually padlock it in there. The baskets are removable even without taking out the concrete, so if there was anything problematic, they went around that route, which is fairly common for installing them. If there was a problematic basket by somebody's property, you would have the ability to remove that one, so that, you know, you can have that discussion or whatever, right? So it can kind of mitigate that until it's properly addressed that way. Right, if there's something that turns up where it's can be an issue.
Okay, thank you. Certainly, Councilor.
I really appreciate that, Scott, that comment, because I think there is an opportunity, like CEO had mentioned it yourself, that these are easily movable baskets. So I think, you know, going forward, it might be not a huge concern perhaps to relocate these if there's feedback after they've been installed, for example. So, but yeah.
So you've put forward two different ideas. One that we reach out to residents now, and the other that we sort of give it a try, and then reach out to residents and see what their comfort level is, and then adapt accordingly.
I guess it's a question more for me. I'm just trying to understand when we built the spray park, we had to go through a development permit process.
Yeah.
That gave all adjacent landlords an opportunity to provide the feedback on that property. And because it's just a basket, I don't know if our development permit process applies to this.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. And so I'm just trying to say, we should have processes for stuff like this.
It's already in place.
Yeah,
We don't need
that's
to initiate a different process.
Yes.
I agree, CA, about it. Do you think that this would be considered to be some kind of development that requires a development process?
I don't believe this would require a development permit of any sort of nature. I think what I would say is that, you know, initially as indicated by Councilor Florence, you know, this came up in roughly September last year, I think, just prior to the election and prior to change in council, obviously. And sort of, you know, the process there was that it came forward to a council meeting that even myself was not really aware that this was in the plans to a degree or anything to that effect. And so it was suggested, you know, in more recent discussions after that point, that, you know, if Parks and Rec, who kind of initiated this, you know, should go through the process of Parks and Rec Direct Committee, and then it should be brought forward to council for approval. The main reason for that was on the basis that if you're looking at Imperial Meadows Park, you're looking at Miners Park, you're looking at Sundance Park, these are our parks and our properties. And if it has any effect on whether it be the spray park or the playground equipment, the walking trails or whatever would be there, that's where council should at least be able to say, you know, we support this and we want it to be there, but, you know, we would like to see the finalized plan. And that's why, you know, as I indicated now, the finalized plan has come to council. And that's why I think that, you know, the approval from council, I think is important, although as indicated by Councilor Poultry, you know, every garbage can or every bench or something to that effect does not necessarily come to council. I mean, in the overall, like say the walking trail, for instance, that we just did, in the overall plan that was done there were, you know, sites chosen for the garbage cans and the benches that were put there. And that plan was, you know, provided to the committee and ultimately to council that this many benches are going in, this many dog poop stations and that type of stuff are going to be put in there. And this is kind of where it is. So again, it doesn't need a permit, I don't believe, but it does need, I think, just council's approval because of the park location of what this is.
Okay.
So I guess we're going to get public feedback, whether we do it and get it later, or we ask for it now and maybe don't get it. You might not get it if people don't even read the letters. But I don't think there's significant risks to approving it as is.
Like, I know that any places where there was any even perceived that Kevin stepped in from Public Works and requested those changes. So at this point, I feel like Yeah, what came forward to us was not actually the background for this one. What came forward to us was very different in September. These guys have been working on this design for some time, from my understanding, in Parks and Rec, and they've been meeting with different stakeholders for a period of time. What came forward to us was very abrupt, and there was no information other than a first name of a guy to give money to. That was not the precursor to what we're seeing in front of us right now, right? So I think it's really important that we know that there was a clear process that they followed in meeting with stakeholders and creating designs and doing their homework on this one. However, do we want to, if we make this motion now, do we want to, once we make this motion, this becomes public information, and do we want to put this on our website? And we can direct people to take a look at it, and if they have some concerns, that they can just shoot a council email. And I guess my fear is just in looking at this picture, looking at the locations, it's difficult to ascertain how far away the baskets are from people's homes, right? And I don't want people to be unnecessarily worried, right? But I mean, we can still, and maybe we can have that information on hand to sort of indicate distances if people have some concerns about that, we can pull that information up. Certainly, who's?
Or Councillor
Sure.
Cook? Go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry, are you going? I was just gonna say, I think that would be a good idea, even if it was not put out as like a way to solicit feedback, but just put out,
Yeah,
that this is the proposed, or this is the design, if it is approved tonight.
yeah. Okay. And I don't, did you have your hand up as well, Councillor Ahmed, or
No,
did Councillor Poetry?
No, I was suggesting that perhaps the Parks and Rec Society could hold a disc golf open house orientation scenario, like people who maybe are interested in disc golf or don't know or maybe concerned about holes. Because being as they're the ones who brought this proposal forward to us.
That's not a bad idea. We could throw it up on our,
And we could have council members attend to it, I don't know.
Yeah,
but-
we could throw it up on our website and we can have these guys put together some nice boards.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly, Councillor.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that with the proposal as it is, I think it would be good to go ahead with it, but just get that public message out, this is the proposed course design. It's gonna take some time for the baskets to come in, so if we can put that on a post on like Facebook or the website, then people will have a chance to give a little bit of feedback before it goes in. If you have like an open night or whatever, where people can come out and look at it. And then I think we just have to be mindful of the homeowners that are nearby. If somebody does have any issues with it, we have to look at being able to pull that out pretty quickly, kind of address that, and then go through more of a formal.
Well, I think it's important to have the distances from the homes made available. And if we find that the residents' concern is reasonable, then we'd be ready to pull it out.
Yeah.
If it's just based on, I don't want somebody X amount of distance, I don't want a bunch of people gathering in that park over there, behind my home or whatever have you, right?
Yeah, and what you two are saying is exactly what Councillor Portrait was saying about like the process going through the development thing, because really, I mean, approving it like this, there is nothing to pull back on because it didn't go through that process, right? So it would just be like, so.
Well, if we approve it though, and then we create it as a public document to go up on our website.
Right.
And then we can have the open house.
Right, but I'm just saying there's no standard about like meters or distance from laneways or driveways or anything like that, right? Like it wouldn't be.
That information can be readily available, right?
Yeah, I think if somebody had legitimate concerns, it would be better to talk to them about it in more of an open house format and say,
Yeah.
you can say like, yes, that's great. We'd love to hear your feedback. Let's get you a disc here. Let's try a disc out and see what you think.
And have the distances, because I know that Kevin has that information at his fingertips. He would have all that information, the distance to laneways and distance to yards and things. I can guarantee you that he was out there with his own measuring stick. I just love how invested he is in the community all the time.
There is the overall plan that's done, it shows the distance between holes and that type of stuff, but I don't know that it necessarily shows
You can scale up our,
A little bit, yeah.
a little bit roughly, yeah, rough dimensions.
But yeah, we can definitely post that design, like, I just pulled off the best pieces I could, because you can't get the whole thing in one page sort of thing.
Yeah,
But we can put that design that was provided by, the disc golf people there on our website and sort of say, if you have any concerns, I guess contact the office or whatever, and depending on the concerns that are raised, maybe then we either have the open house or look at certain holes if there's a concern.
I agree with that.
so did someone want to make this motion then to move this plan forward?
I can make that motion.
Councilor Porter? Was there any more discussion or? No? Alrighty, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Do you want me to read it?
Oh, yeah, I guess we better read it. Sorry, thank you for that.
I move that the council of the town of Colhurst hereby approves the proposed design for the 21-hole disc golf course as presented by Colhurst Parks and Recreation Society. Furthermore, the installation proceed with assistance from the town's public works department as per the proposed design.
All right, thank you. Okay, all those in favor? All right, thank you, carried. All right, bylaws and reports. Okay, if you can take us through this one, CAO, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So this would be the bylaw that was talked about with our Greenwood Estates Area Structure Plan amendment to give first reading to on the basis of, the motion that passed earlier in the meeting. So basically, the only change that you see that's being done is the part, I know it doesn't show up in red, but basically would be to amend the driveway width from 5.5 to 5.8 meters in the subdivision, in the entire subdivision, if it was approved to go through. So that's the basic change that will occur. So
And at this time, we only do first reading.
first reading, and then the notice as indicated with the earlier motion would be to approach the people that have applied for this amendment to come forward with a stormwater plan or, effects of the change that they're requesting. And once they bring that forward, as Diane indicated, then we would set up the public hearing and then deal with possible second and third reading if,
Wonderful, thank
based on
you.
that information that's presented. So
Thank you. All right, who wants to make that? Councillor Ackerman?
I move that bylaw 433-22 amendment to bylaw 389-17 Greenwood Estates Area Structure Plan is hereby read first time.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? That's carried, thank you. All right. Okay, committee minutes, the Community Sustainability Enhancement Committee. And I believe that would be you, Councillor Ackerman, certainly.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mayor Montino is the chair of that committee, but I can speak on it as I was there. So we had met with NPE Engineering. They were bringing some information forward on the electric vehicle charging program and just kind of what was involved. They subsequently came to that special meeting in council after this meeting and spoke to us there. And then the only other thing that really came up was the community grant program, an application for funding from the elementary school for National Indigenous Peoples Day, celebration of culture. And then I made the recommendation that we approve the application for funding under the community grant program, and that's for $1,500, and that's going to be offsetting costs for the speakers and what they have going on. They proposed a budget and everything. When they submitted the grant application, the only thing that wasn't 100% by the book was they missed the deadline, or the date of the event was about 3 days before the cutoff window kind of thing, but we haven't received any other grants, so we thought that we should push that forward from that committee, but everything else was kind of spoken to, and they kind of followed the correct process on that.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that, I'm not sure, how many have we actually had come in on time? We're always dreading just barely on time or a little bit late, and I'm grateful that we're able to have that flexibility. This is going to be a great event. Thank you. Did anybody have any questions about those committee minutes? No? Okay, so you did have a motion that came out of that?
Yeah, so I move that the council of the town of Colhurst hereby approve the application for funding under the community grant program in the amount of $1,500 to Colhurst Elementary School to assist in offsetting the costs for our area, supplies and mileage of the speakers and presenters of the National Indigenous Peoples Day, the celebration of culture event to be held at Colhurst Elementary School on June 27th, 2022.
All right, thank you, and thank you for moving that forward. Any questions or conversation on this? If not, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried, thank you. All right, the next item before us is our minutes for the Policy Bylaw Review Committee. And Councillor Ackerman, I believe that's you again, sir. Thank you.
So we had gone through a few of the policies. I'm just going to kind of jump through the minutes here a little bit. We've gone through policy 000108 to 000113. Just kind of mainly housekeeping for the staff volunteer appreciation event. We were just removing some of the specific groups that were mentioned in there just to make it a little bit more general and evergreen. The memberships that Colhurst is a part of for policy 000109, we're just updating the list for that. Councillor Florence did make a recommendation to rescind the meeting notice policy. A lot of that stuff is already covered under I believe it's her
Procedure.
Reference?
Yes.
Bylaw, procedural bylaw.
Procedural
Procedural
thank you.
bylaw. And then we're making the recommendation for the policy for the Minor State Committee to kind of refer that to the Rec and Culture Committee for their input, as they will be the ones kind of facilitating that event. So we figured that they would be able to provide a better framework for that. And then when we're looking at the Volunteer Appreciation Awards, we wanted to add the nomination form to the town website and just kind of bring awareness to that. And then we went over payment of accounts as well and just kind of removed some of the specific people in there just to kind of clean it up a little bit. Councillor Florence was talking about a couple things that came up from the elected officials education program. Some of those were the complaint process was one of them. Just grabbing my notes here. Sorry, Councillor Florence, do you want to speak on ones that you're?
No, go ahead, or do you want me to, or?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Just briefly, we were talking about developing a complaint process or looking into it. And then from that, it led us to a discussion about a community standards bylaw. And so as it's written here, it's that it's looking into that for consideration for the committee.
So just to add to that, the community standards bylaw, I think you were referencing Coaldale's as kind of a starting point. They do have about a 30-page document that's just kind of a lot of general bylaw information that would be useful for residents. So it talks about unsightly premises and other things like that. So it's all kind of combined into one, just for community standards. So it's a little bit easier for people to navigate to and find the information that they're looking for. So we're looking at possibly creating one of those and maybe rescinding some of the other bylaws, just to kind of bring everything together.
Sorry, if I might just for clarity, then you're looking at just putting a compilation of bylaws together. You're not going to make them all be one bylaw. They'll just be a group of bylaws as how that impacts our residents in one.
That's all one bylaw. Coaldale's.
Sorry. Can I speak to that?
Yeah, sure.
So Coaldale was just an example that I threw in there in the note, but so it just something that had come up previously with council is how we don't have a complaint process, and so we were talking.
Complaint process is wonderful.
Right, and so what that kind of led to that not a lot of places have bylaws, but in fact it's more of a process. And so then when we were talking about, I was, thinking about like, how is it enforceable? So then you would have your community standards bylaw, and your community standards bylaw addresses all of the things that could be potentially complained about. So like Councillor Ackerman had mentioned, the cleanliness of yards or barking pets or parties or noise complaints and things like that, but it wouldn't remove any other bylaws. It would just be exactly what it is, a community standards bylaw. So and so with that, then there's, I guess, a little bit of grit to be able to.
Do you see it adding more teeth?
Yeah.
Rather than, I see my initial response, and I might be wrong on this, but my initial response feels as though it removes teeth. So we have a standalone bylaw that is specific to this, that our bylaw officer can enact. So it's a bylaw related to barking dogs, and she can come in and say, you're in violation of this bylaw, barking dogs.
Right.
Right? Rather than you're in violation of our community standards.
So Coaldale's is a bylaw, it's just called community standards.
Okay, yeah, and so community standards would be, so that really what we're doing is we're just compiling our bylaws that impact our residents and put it into one location where they can just have easy access to say, okay, these are the things that, I said, okay. I thought we were talking about just taking all of our existing bylaws and turning them into one. It's called community standards. Oh, well then, yeah, okay.
This is mainly for, I guess, the town residents to have a place where they can find the information that's kind of pertinent to what they need, right? And then just kind of have it in one spot instead of, say if you're trying to, like, for instance, I was looking at my neighbor's weeds, right? And I didn't know where to look for that, right? So if it wasn't something like this, or, if it's just the common things that people might be complaining about, then it's one place that they can go and have all that information right there.
And maybe they have it set up so that you don't immediately know where to go, rather, when you look at your neighbor's weeds. Maybe the bylaw is set up to keep you being a good neighbor to your neighbor. And give you a chance to think things through as you're thumbing through all the bylaws.
When it comes to some of those vacant lots though.
Oh, the vacant lots, yeah, those are, and that's something that we need to bring forward again, right? Every spring, we just sort of send out, don't we? We send a letter to all of our developers or the people that have the vacant lots to say, you need to be on top of this. Yeah, I like where you're going with this though. I think this is great, and I think that is one thing that has been a bit of a challenge is we need to have a clear complaint process in place. We need to have an understanding for the residents because I don't think, we're a small town, but it seems a little bit onerous for our CAO to be sitting in his office with anybody that has a complaint. Like, when you have other things to be doing and other things to be taken care of, sitting with people, if we had a clear process in place, then it might not look like that, right? Not saying that residents' complaints aren't super important, but I'm just saying that if we have a clear process, you're not taking everyone into your office to sit down to talk about it. And so was there any motions then that came out of those minutes? Was there any more discussion on those minutes, or did you want to just get into the motions?
That was pretty much a summary of everything, I think.
Thank you so much. Okay, and it looks as though we've got a couple of motions before us, eh? So, Councillor Florence, did you want to read your?
Yep, I move that the Council of the Town of Colhurst hereby rescind policy number 00-01-10 meeting notice. And so we rescinded that one because it was in the procedural bylaw.
Okay. Wonderful, thank you. Was there any other discussion on that, or? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Wonderful, thank you. Okay, and Councillor Ackerman, you have the next one there.
I move that the Council of the Town of Colhurst hereby recommend that policy number 000111, Miners Day Committee, be referred to the Rec and Culture Committee for their input on amendments.
All right, thank you. And was there any discussion on that motion? Anybody have any questions about that, or? And Councillor Poultry, you look like you're thinking about that.
I'm on the next motion.
Oh. All right, well, seeing none, then I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried, thank you. All right, in our next committee minutes, we have before us Committee of the Whole for March 29th. There was a motion that came out of that. There was a motion that came out of that Committee of the Whole meeting. And, sorry, Councillor Boyce, did you?
I just have a comment about the minutes on that one. Is this a good time to ask that, or?
If you had a question about the minutes, yes, but at the beginning of our meeting, we asked if there was any.
Well, the next motion is the committee minutes.
Oh, that's right, I apologize. I'm sorry, you're right, and I'm out to lunch on that one.
I just, in regards to our discussion number 3, affordable housing, we spent a lot of time talking about affordable housing, and I very much understand the difference between affordable and seniors housing, but we did talk about seniors housing a lot too, so I was wondering if we should include a line about that, like, did discuss seniors housing as well?
Yes, I think that, or we could put a discussion on affordable housing and seniors housing.
Okay.
Right? Just, yeah, I think that that's a really good amendment because you're right. We have to be so careful, the language, both federally and provincially, when they're speaking about housing, it's affordable housing and it is for seniors as well as families. But we, within our community, we speak about our seniors housing. So you're right. we sort of have to translate some of that language into our community. Okay, are you comfortable with where that change is?
Yeah.
Leslie?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I see it now that it's right below there. But do you want me to make that motion or just let Jesse finish his motion?
Yeah, well, we'll let Jesse finish his motion first and then we'll move the committee
Sorry.
minutes as amended. Okay. So did you want to read your,
Yes, I'll just like to adjust it slightly though. I move that the council of the town of Cohurst hereby authorize Chief Administrative Officer Howda to investigate the cancellation of the contract of the town app. And I want to say prepare a plan, which includes investigating the town website.
to prepare a plan
Prepare-
for upgrading the town website and other communication means?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. That sort of encapsulates our conversation a little bit better, right?
Yeah.
And so if we can ask after the town app and to, prepare a plan. Prepare a plan, to upgrade our website and other means of communication. Yeah, perfect. I will be, and you've, on policy bylaw, you're looking at website stuff as well, aren't you?
In the previous meeting, we had talked about how the policies are portrayed on
Okay, wonderful, thanks, okay, good. All right, does that suit with what you
Yeah.
were wanting to make the motion? Wonderful, yeah, so just so we can remove then investigate upgrading the town website, that would be lovely, thank you very much. Leslie? Okay, was there any other discussion on this or any questions? Okay, all right, and seeing none, I'll call the question, all in favor? And that's carried, thank you very much. Sir, did you have any comments on that or, okay. Certainly, so you have one?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just one other comment, I guess, in terms of the point number one, the food distribution event. Just wondered if there's been any further consultation with the individuals involved there. Just talking to Public Works today or whatever in terms of like garbage cans to tables to anything like that that might be required, and obviously, or even the circulation into the event. Like right now, obviously, the roads between the ball diamonds and all that type of stuff are not open because the campground and that type of stuff isn't open. So I'm not sure how, if the plan's been figured out for all that sort of stuff yet.
For food distribution,
Yes.
certainly,
I guess
please,
I can
please.
provide what I know, Deputy Mayor. I have been in contact with her and, to be honest, I'm a bit disappointed with lack of updates. They have found a forklift. Cabinet Expressions is volunteering to donate that. I do have already 10 volunteers committed, but she has, I will have to reach out with her directly and ask her those questions because I even asked her about, is there a social media update that you can make on your thing or provide to us? And I don't think we've received anything like that either in less than
Just
just
the poster is the only thing we got.
Yeah. So but that poster, is one part of it.
Yeah. That's all we received. So I guess just, if I may, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, please.
In terms of, previous ones, and obviously, Councilor Florence is involved in some of those, but, depending on, there'll be a lot of cars down Second Street, and just how we get into there and go out if the other stuff isn't opened up due to timing of, or whether that's something that needs to be looked at. They did ask me when I talked to her about recycling cardboard or whatever, and I said, well, we do have, obviously, the recycle place by the fire hall. I gave her a map sort of where that was, so that she was aware of it. But I guess just wanted to make sure that if there is anything to that effect, that obviously we would need, Public Works would have to be consulted, dealt with, and work together to figure out a plan if that was the case. So.
Thanks for bringing that up. I'll communicate that to her and see if there's any additional access or resources required there.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And was there any other updates that we're meeting again before, so if there's anything else that you need from us, but you'll be in communication with RK.
Yeah, whenever, if I hear anything, I'll pass it on for sure.
And how are we doing volunteers? Is that
I've got 10 or 12 already. And I didn't
fantastic?
even ask the church yet.
And you haven't even asked the church yet?
I just sent them a thing today and see.
Oh, wonderful. That's so good.
Yeah, Devin. Want to jump right in.
Awesome,
And
Oh,
his friends.
absolutely.
And his friends. Wonderful.
Good.
Oh, thank you for that. Okay, and so who indicated that they wanted to move committee minutes if there's no more discussion on our committee minutes? Councillor Florence?
I will move that the committee minutes presented in this meeting are accepted. With
All right.
the minor change on that one thing.
All right, oh, accepted as amended, right?
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor, that's carried, thank you. Okay, so, CAO reports. You know, we always said we were just going to do this by consent agenda, but we tend to pull out almost everything from your report, so I'll just ask if you can please give your report. Say about that.
All right, thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I don't really comment on too many of the items. I mean, the information is there. Feel free to ask any questions from that. As indicated, the road ban went into effect recently. Strategic planning indicated the statement of work was signed. Actually, did get an email late today. They were proposing some possible dates that they were looking at to come for the 1.5-day workshop and that type of stuff. And then I guess from there, process of communication or whatever with public, which I think was talked about. They didn't say a whole lot in that there, but we'll be in consultation with them in that. The MAP grant, what we've talked about, the solar energy project updated, the tax collection update is there, which basically, if you look at it, quite successful in terms of the collections there. We did, avoided the tax sale on the 2 properties, tax notifications only 2. Even the other 1 year in arrears, basically collected fairly well. And Old Baldwin Park, still working on that, for that, but generally we did get pretty good success in there as well, so. LGA conference obviously was this week, and obviously is indicated in there, I'm not there, for reasons as indicated. Still working on our wetland thing, moving ahead there, area structure plan meeting for our quarter section of land that's recently come into town. We do have a meeting with the consultant in that regard next week, actually. Our new director of corporate services scheduled to start next week, and we talked a little bit at the last meeting there about the Coalers Fire Department and what they brought for recommendations for a chief and deputy fire chief, so that recommendation is there. And just for information, there was talk earlier in terms of some other options that have been looked at, but the speed sign monitor that we have, just a sample of the information that we can pull off of that, whether it's daily or weekly. And Kevin has found, different locations to place it. You've got one down on 2nd Street now. He was able to get a pole sort of set up accordingly. So, and certainly 45th was that recently. It did show speeds there upwards of 100 kilometers an hour even at times. A few of them. So I mean, definitely an area that but as indicated, 45th, 6th, 2nd. Those are prime speed potential zones. And 2nd was indicating some as well, to the extent of what it is. So if nothing else, having that there, you see the brake lights go on when people go or whatever, so it does, it's not low radar, it's not, that the enforcement people are there, but it does still remind you to maybe take a look, and it does slow a few people down. I mean, I get it when I'm driving in the city or different places, you see it, and whether you're speeding or not, you do definitely look down at your speedometer to see if I am or not, so, and it kind of tells you anyway, so certainly the information that we can pull off of there, so. And that's all I'll say on my report, I guess, and sort of any questions.
Good, is there any questions for Councillor Florence?
I have 2 questions. One about number 7, just that second part, about the charging program. There's been chatter that there's no more grant money left. Did they address that?
I haven't heard yet. I mean, we're working on the EOI or whatever, but I mean, that was just EOI, which meant you still weren't in an application process for that. So And as indicated, there is potential that we were close to the deadline for a thing on it anyway, even with that, so.
Okay, but no further update beyond that?
No, nothing on that, so.
Okay, Councillor Ackerman?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. If I can just touch base on that, through the Southborough conversations that I've heard that there has been more applications for grant funding than the total funding pool is out there. And then when I was at that Economic Development Summit on the 30th, there was somebody that was from MCCAC that was speaking of it. She said, they do have a high intake on that, but they're still talking about submitting applications for that, so I don't think it's completely closed off, but it's probably gonna get pretty close pretty soon.
Thank you for that. Certainly.
Sorry, just one other question / comment. On number 11, the speed sign monitor, 45th, like I'm probably guilty of speeding a little bit too because it's such a long, straight road. But in the future, there may potentially be further development down that road, right? So, I mean, we're gonna have to address that. One thing that really bugs me is those big orange signs there that say, don't cross the road and that side whole sidewalk's closed. But I mean, seeing speeding like this, it almost makes you see why. But like in terms of traffic calming, which is something we're obviously gonna need to address there one day, like I would love to see a big traffic circle right in the middle of 45th and 6th to just like slow everybody down before they, run into the sign at Sundance and things like that. And then that way the orange signs could come down. But yeah, I think that's a big deal. Like going 100K down that road, like if they flew off, well actually somebody did fly off further up to Sundance and very much broke that fence and could have been much worse, so yeah.
That is a little bit disturbing, isn't it? Yeah. Certainly, Councillor Brooker?
I mean, looking at the data, it's like most people are going over the speed limit already. I wonder if it might be better for everybody to bump that up to something more reasonable. And then engineer all the intersections of the roads in the future subdivision to accommodate that speed. So what do you say for that?
And the challenge is, the reason why we set that speed is because we always knew that we were going to have a subdivision on the other side of the road as well, right? Not just going to be a commercial zone.
So have that interchange across that street.
So we, and that was really clear, that came from our engineers at the time. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, CEO out of it. At that time, the conversation with the engineers that we have to sort of set that speed at the rate that we plan to continue once we have that development in place. Right, because once people get in the habit of traveling along there 80, because that was the original. Once people get used to traveling, we're not going to be able to slow them down, right? And I mean, looking at it, we're not slowing people down anyways, because it's that speed at 60. But maybe we just need to get more enforcement out there, right? That's certainly CEO about it.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I think part of that was 45th was if and when there is development on the other side, there would probably be a secondary street or whatever that would then come on to 45th. So
Yeah.
that's where the slower speed would be, and this was kind of meant to be your scenic drive or Mayor McGrath or those types of places where maybe the 60 was the speed limit that to move a little bit. It's kind of like the discussion even going down 223 and 92. I mean, there was different talks there about whether it be 70, 80, whatever the case was too. And I mean, it was felt that, again, traffic standards and whatever we looked at, number of approaches and that type of stuff on there, through the engineering department, it was still felt that that was a reasonable speed. But that's not to say that everybody adheres to that speed either, necessarily going down there as well. There was even talk about coming off 45th and onto 223 as to whether it should be a full stop or whether there should be that yield kind of merge thing onto it as well. And it was felt the same thing that, merge onto there. There wasn't a lot of traffic coming, from the north sort of thing, but, things change, I guess, it's stuff to be looked at, but,
I'm sorry, I'm confusing it. I'm thinking about 92 and 223.
Oh, okay.
That's the one where you have to, if you're leaving town, you have to stop, but if you're coming into town, you can just turn.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
This one.
Why is that set up as a
down there.
sign up there?
223.
Because people go straight, not everybody turns.
Well, no, but this intersection is the same way. This one right up here, right? Kip Road.
Yeah.
It's a T intersection, but there's no stop sign for going either way, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the reason, the reason for the stop at 9-2 was such that we had complaints and we had people that were going right off there when it was icy and that sort of stuff.
You're right.
And there also was the, you know, the residences that are straight through of 9-2 as well that are there that said, you know, if people aren't stopping there, I mean, it's dangerous for them as well. So that was the logic of saying there should be a stop there, but if you're coming to, it's obviously, it's a yield. So it was looked at, and that was the recommendation at the time was to, so I think at one point it was yield, and then they changed it to a stop.
That's correct, yeah.
So,
Councillor Ackerman?
Just looking at the traffic speed report again, just a couple thoughts on this. If I'm reading this correctly, it looks like over a 1 week period, we had 72 vehicles that were going between 91 and 100 kilometers an hour on that stretch of road, which is 30 plus above the speed limit. I'm wondering if we should be sharing this information with our RCMP and say, hey, look, speeding is an issue in this part of town. Can we get some more vehicles out there? At least try and kind of have a visibility campaign just to slow people down.
Well, we do have our own enforcer now.
Yeah.
I mean,
She doesn't work after hours.
But I know with conversations with the RCMP, they're talking about, you know, they're not gonna do anything unless they know that there's an issue, so they're encouraging people to report things. So I think if we share this information with them, we can say, hey, clearly, you know, the majority of people are speeding, which is kind of a given, looking at the numbers, but there are people that are significantly speeding on that road as well, right?
Okay.
I think it would be worthwhile sharing that information, even just of a, hey, we just put this here, this is what we're seeing, you know, this is an issue for residents.
Certainly, Councillor Florence and then Councillor Porter.
Yeah, just like a shameless plug for Sergeant Newman, with the new changes and even what he's talking about with getting more people in here, and even at the county open house the other day, he specifically mentioned the comment about, you know, officers doing paperwork in their vehicles out here. But over the past weekend, just with warm weather, I was biking around and I've seen 2 different RCMP officers at 2 different times in different locations. You know, I would have to say kudos actually, because it's more than I've seen recently, and I feel that with the comments from Staff Sergeant Newman that I hope it's intentional, and I think it might be, so.
That's wonderful. And so, I mean, maybe it's not a bad idea to say, do you want to come and just park there for a little bit and, you know, shine your light? And, but do we generate revenue from our
Portion of it.
tickets, or do you know?
Yeah, there's a portion, I know it used to be a percentage that was sort of set, and then I heard with COVID, they were keeping a little bit more. And I'm not sure exactly what percentage they are actually keeping now, but we do receive tickets within town limits. We do get some revenue from that, whether it's from our police officer or from the RCMP, so.
So if our police officer gives the tickets, it would be the same revenue as if the RCMP gives the tickets?
Because it still goes through the court systems, yeah.
So then I guess, yeah, calling the RCMP and asking for some help on along that stretch wouldn't be unreasonable then. And then we could utilize our police officer in other locations. Are we able to share this data with them and just to say?
Oh, yeah, it's not, I mean, that's why it was provided by the Director of Operations, just because we've had some discussions as to, you know, I know that Councilor Coltrane and different ones have looked at some other, you know, monitors or whatever. This is what ours does. And we talked about whether we needed another one for ourselves to have a couple in place or whatever, but, you know, this does have a lot of information and can produce a lot of information. This is just a sample of what we can get out of it, so.
I really appreciate you providing this. It's very
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, that's fantastic.
And for me, I was gonna say, like, I think a lot of people go faster down that road, maybe, I mean, everybody, looks like most people speed down that road. I think because it's viewed, it looks to be engineered the same as every other secondary highway in the province, which is at 80 kilometers an hour, right? And I appreciate what you're saying, Councilor Florence, or Deputy Mayor Caldwell, about, yes, it's part of our future core, but there's currently nothing on either side of that road that would connect to it. And there's no pathways, there's no reason for people to, when I look at it, it looks the same as any other gravel road, which is definitely not safe to go 80 on. Right, because, anyway, I don't think there's any reason to artificially limit it to 50 down that stretch until we get the development on the other side. That's my thought anyway. Because I don't think we should be penalizing, we're talking about, penalizing our residents $10 a month on their utility bill is a big issue. And if somebody gets a speeding ticket for going 10 over on this road, which has very little impact to anybody, I would say, that's what, $300, right? I mean,
It's a big speeding ticket. So what I'm hearing from you is that perhaps we leave it be for now. And then when we're looking at developing there, we start a campaign that is a big rush campaign where we just have somebody there every day hanging up tickets to shut this stuff down. And we give people plenty of notice in the newsletter that says, okay, guys, you've had this free ride,
put up signs, radar patrolled, right? Yeah.
radar patrolled, and we let everybody know there's gonna be development and it's not safe to do this.
Yeah.
And we just hit a hard hitting campaign at that time.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think that sounds, if what I'm hearing you,
Yeah,
It's correct, that
that's
sounds
right,
brilliant.
that's absolutely.
well
correct.
said.
Thank you, Heather. You said well for me too.
Councillor Ackerman and Councillor Florence, I don't know what your thoughts are on like that. Do you feel that you want to wait until we get closer to the time when we start to develop there before we get in there and stop this? It seems to me that it's probably, this is just a snapshot in time, but this has probably been the practice since that road is opened. I know my son used to ride his bicycle down there faster than 60. So, I don't know. It's a beautiful, tempting piece of road.
It's so straight.
But I mean, at this point, really, we're just having a conversation about whether we enforce it or whether we just sit back at this point.
I think one of my concerns is when you come down, I can't even remember, is it Sixth Street that connects to 45th there?
Yeah.
So it's like if I take my son to the park in Imperial Meadows and I'm walking back along Sixth Street and then I get on to 45th, there's still a lot of quick traffic passing, right? Even
It's
between.
that section from 6th Ave to Sundance Drive.
Yeah,
Or just prior to that.
well, that
Actually, that
section's-
sign when they slow down to 50.
Yeah, but there's traffic that's going well beyond that, it seems, right?
Well,
And
well,
it's,
I would fully support enforcement after 6th Street then. We recommend that as a spot.
I just think of it as a safety hazard and there's lots of little kids in the neighborhood, so
It's,
that's where I'm.
And our pathway
coming
does terminate there now, encouraging people to walk.
where's our pathway terminating?
Just
from. Right on the bend.
right on the bend, and it's right here, right?
Oh, yeah, okay.
So I'm talking about the stretch of road right here.
Yeah.
There's nobody's walking down this path road, but I have gone down this path.
I have seen people walking their pets in behind those houses on 45th too.
Yeah.
Like kind of towards where that new project is.
Okay.
So there is foot traffic there. And then even on the south side of the road, there's people that walk along the berm.
I've seen people driving up the highway.
That's
Yeah, I
really
mean,
the dangerous idea.
I used to do that, I used to walk that whole loop. Right?
Stop.
So,
I know it's not a highway, but
okay,
it looks engineered exactly the same.
Yeah.
So people treat it the same way, right? So, I mean, if we had like a boulevard with trees and pathways, right, I can see, let's slow it down, right?
so we have before, so we have some information that indicates that people are speeding down that road. And the question I'm putting before council is, do we want to take action on this at this point, or do we not want to? So hearing from Councillor Ackerman that he identifies it in that area from 6th Street into Sundance, that is a safety issue.
100%, yeah.
Okay. Councillor Coulter, you say you would
I
support that?
agree, that section is definitely a primary connector between our communities for walking paths, yeah.
Yeah, and Councillor Florence?
I would love if this information could get passed on to both our peace officer and the RCMP and see what the response is and some enforcement for those areas.
And indicate that our area of primary concern would be where we have, where there's foot traffic. That area, the connector from 6th Street into Sundance. And,
I mean, I don't have, if somebody gets a ticket, it's their fault.
well, no, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Often, because what's gonna happen here is often, over a course of time, something becomes habitual. And I have to be honest, when I loved seeing that there, because I find I tend to creep up and then I'd see it and I say, oh crap. And then I slow it down, but you're kind of just going with the flow of traffic on there in the mornings, right? so, I guess my point is that If we go and then we start enforcing now, as soon as we step away, it's gonna roll back into doing that again. And then once we start moving towards opening up that subdivision in there, then we're gonna have to go in there and get really hard hitting and really stick with it.
Well, and we should have multiple intersections along that road.
Yeah,
Then at
there-
that point.
There will be, yeah.
Which may have signage or roundabouts or something.
Yeah, certainly, Councilor Akron.
Thank you. Just looking at the numbers here, even if we look at the 80 to 100 kilometer an hour, we have 468 vehicles in a 7-day stretch, so that's just about 70 vehicles a day that are going 20 above the speed limit there.
Yeah.
So I think, there's leniency in not wanting to ticket people, but at the same time, these people are making the conscious choice to disregard that speed limit sign, right?
Yeah, and
They have
we've
problems
had a
with
full
progress.
conversation on that speed already. So at this point, I'm asking for decision and then we're gonna move forward.
Yeah.
Because we've got so much material in front of us. So what I'm hearing from you, and I think that I'm hearing from all three of you, that what we're looking at doing is just moving this information forward with the RCMP and express that our area of biggest concern would be where we have foot traffic. And that would be between Sixth Street and Sundance. They would request for support from them in that location.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Now, if we can direct administration, do we need to make a motion to that effect, that we forward this information to the RCMP with expressing the following priorities?
I think basically we just passed it on to them, and I think regardless, speeding is speeding, if they have to be in town and they're
Yeah.
caught, they're caught. If the police officer patrols these areas, same thing,
I just really feel the people who are on the edge should get speeding ticket.
Yes, and I think that there's gonna be some degree of compassion, when you have large groups of vehicles all traveling together, there is sort of that going with the flow of traffic kind of idea. But they'll catch the excessive people, right? And so,
It slows people down.
all right, so we'll leave that in your hands then. Okay, thank you, CEO. Councilor Torrance?
I was just looking ahead at the motion on the table and I'd love to make that motion, if we're ready to move on.
Oh, okay, let's just move on then and take a look at what we've got for our next motion here. Okay,
So,
thank you. And Councilor Florence makes that motion?
Yeah, so coming from the CAO's report, so I move that the council of the town of Colhurst hereby appoints Mitch Sorstel as the fire chief and Willie Williams as deputy fire chief for the Colhurst Fire Department, effective April 1st, 2022.
That sounds exciting. Is there any conversation or questions on that? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor? Wonderful, thank you. That's carried. Okay, and there's no more motions that come out of CAO's report. We'll move forward with the Director of Operations report. Thank you. And CAO, did you want to speak to any of this on here, or we're going to assume that everybody's had a chance to read through this? Was there any questions that came out of this, or did you need to give us any more information on any of
I
this?
think it's information, unless you have any questions. You can get in there.
I did have a quick question. Advertisements are out for the seasonal staff positions. How many did we get funded for this year?
Haven't heard officially yet.
Okay,
They said April is when they would be releasing the,
okay, so are we posting for 2 positions
we
then?
didn't post for 2 and we did apply for 2, so.
Good. Have you received any calls from any local
I
residents?
did have an email from, but they have since got a job already, I was told, so I'm not sure if Kevin's had any personal.
Was that one of our Mayor's Ward winners?
It probably was, or,
Okay.
well, it's definitely a scholarship winner in the past.
One of our scholarship winners, yeah. Yeah. She was coming back home from college and had been sending emails asking when they were being posted.
Yeah, I had talked to her, communicated, and she said, yeah, that she had a job. So,
Aw, she would have been really good at that.
so, yeah.
But do we tend to prioritize our local youth when we're
We do if we get applications for sure.
from our, have we received much in terms of?
Well, it's just been posted, so I'm not sure if any have come in yet.
We've got any.
Talked to, and it goes to Kevin deals with that mostly, so I don't, he talks to me about some, but mostly it's,
Yeah,
mostly it's.
my hope is that we grow in Kevin. Let's keep our eyes out. Isn't that how Kevin started here, working in summers? And now he's our director of operations and he will cover he knows every inch of this town. And he goes above and beyond all the time, because this is his home, right? I love that. Good. And, solar project is underway, that's super exciting. And who's doing the design on the renovation in the community center? Did we put Bill in charge of picking linoleum this time, or paint colors, or?
Yes.
I'm fully in the weeds right now, and it's okay, okay?
It's the same color as it was, same ugly beige, they just repainted it a nice new fresh color.
It's right.
Not-
Nobody tell him that I questioned his design aesthetic, okay?
Watch council meeting minutes at 9:05.
That's right. I'm glad that you did that, that's fantastic, thank you. Okay, did anybody have any questions on the Director of Operations report?
I am curious, because Parks and Rec had their AGM scheduled for that time and it's being closed. I'm curious, since it's only the floor tiles being replaced, I'm wondering if you could still have access to the hall on the other side, because the hardwood is not changing, right? Anyway, I'm not sure if we have doors on those sides. I wonder if, they could have kept some of the bookings open, I guess.
You mean in the youth center side there, you mean, or
Yeah, or even that there's the exit out the back as well, right? That you could, if there's, I don't know, if there's
in the
any,
kitchen?
yeah, they could open it up through there and still have, because we don't each done the whole hall, right? It's, I don't know, or maybe we do. It sounds like the lighting's already done, so it's just the flooring that's in the process.
Certainly, see you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As far as the AGM, yeah, provision has been made that they can meet in the hall, so
Okay,
I know that for a fact, so.
well, that's,
All right. Thank you. So we have a motion before us. Anybody want to move the CEO's report? Councilor Ackerman?
Yeah, I move that the Chief Administrative Officer's report is hereby accepted as presented.
All right, thank you. Any questions on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, and our next items before it is council members' reports and questions. And I am incredibly impressed at the amount of work everybody put into forwarding the reports. Thank you very much. I, however, did not email a report. I have 3 items on my list. And I had anticipated that that others would speak about ORS, that they would speak about the wonderful training that took part in ORS. And and I think we're going to continue to have conversations about the ways that we can utilize some of their stuff. I'm really excited with their drone project and the things that they can do for us in terms of mapping evacuation routes and stuff like that, right? But yeah, so I did also attend the Old Man River Regional Services Commission orientation. And then I also attended both the executive and the regular meeting from Green Acres Foundation. And Green Acres Foundation is sort of one of those standalone organizations where we're limited in what we can bring forward. So we did have our audited financial reports and everything was clean and clear, it looked great. Has anybody seen that we are opening up a new, what's it called, the Abbey Road Terrace, the new building in Lethbridge? At one point, I believe that it was a nunnery along 8th. So we're in the process of doing renovations on that building. And that is really exciting information. Yeah, and that's everything that I attended. And did anybody want to speak about any of the committee that they attended at all within this report? I mean, you had a pretty thorough report that you forwarded with your, certainly, Councilor Ackerman?
Yeah, so the only thing I really wanted to touch on for the South Grow Executive Board, I was trying to kind of bring a little bit of awareness for some of the towns that might not have much for economic development. So with the suggestion that I made, they did put into the operation plan to kind of put together a package of the resources that are available to share them with all the smaller municipalities and any municipality there. And then there is also another thing where they're doing council orientations and they're trying to do essentially, I think last year's goal was 1/2 of the councils that are members. This year, I think that's gonna go a little bit lower, but I think they might lower 1/2. But there's also a recommendation to make like a video that they can pass along if they aren't able to make it to a council orientation, just so that way it's kind of reaching everyone. And then the other thing I wanted to add from there is there is talk of the supply chain opportunity identification project. So they were initially looking at the 200 largest businesses in the area and just kind of putting the supply chain link together so people can kind of connect the dots locally. And I made a recommendation there to try and include at least one from every community. So just trying to bring that back kind of from smaller communities so that everyone kind of has a little cut at the pie and a foot in the door, so to speak. So just trying to leverage, I guess, trying to leverage our weight for things that would be beneficial for our municipality and other municipalities that are in our situation.
Yeah, fantastic, thank you, Councillor Ackerman. Good, was there anything else that anybody wanted to bring forward? Councillor Courtry?
There was, I think, a part of the GIS information we had on ORSC was that there was additional like information that ORSC, like a additional level detail that's like there's the public version and there's another like more detailed version that potentially we could have access to. So I was curious if we could look into that.
I know when I came back from their orientation last time, I felt the same degree of excitement that was asking about that. I love their GIS system. And I guess it'd be nice to know if are we able to stay up to date with providing them with information? Sierra Hada, like we have a lot of partners, we have our engineers, we have our planners, like do they all put our information in there?
I don't think we have, with ORSC, I don't think we have everything necessarily because we have our TCA with other firms or whatever in that sense. And over the years, it was always, ORSC was just kind of getting into the TCA and sort of that sort of stuff and the numbering and being able to forecast the life and that sort of stuff of it, which is required for the TCA process. And that's why we chose to stay with Associated Engineering and ultimately now with a private consultant that used to be with Associated that does it for us.
Yes.
So that, gets together with our audit requirements that need to be there. But certainly we have, provided some information to them. There's probably more that we can provide to them in terms of that. But certainly some of the stuff is still TCA is not at their disposal at this point.
I think that if, to have the conversation with them, because it's free, first off, right? And it's only benefits us. If anybody wants to, it's just anything from trying to do a locate to, everything's just right there that they can provide us with that information. And it's not readily available to the public. As Councillor Poultry indicated, that there is a sort of a public viewing portal for GIS, and then there's more in-depth information that is not for public consumption. And so, for our public works to be able to just open up one map that shows where everything underground is and how everything connects within our community might be tremendous value for the guys, right? And some of the stories they carried is that, a lot of these guys, like Larry, our old public works guy, carried everything in his memory. I remember when we were trying to look at getting, where do we put our lawn? And he said, oh, he was showing us these things, and it was just like he was a walking map. And so they shared stories of smaller communities where they have these walking maps. And basically what they're doing is they're just inputting it all into the system. And now you can just open it up. So I would just hazard a guess, rather than make it be resource intensive, anything that we share for our tangible capital assets, we just forward them to them as well for input into GIS.
Well, we could, because the TCA has all that stuff too. It's all
Yeah.
itemized and diarized and priced and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
and Kevin has access to both systems and
Yeah, but if they're compiled in one and they were overlapping as a grid pattern, like as a overlapping map, if he ever needs to put pieces together, he doesn't have to do it himself, it's already in place for him, right?
yeah, and he's been doing a lot of digital mapping and stuff too, so.
Yeah, and so, there was nothing within the orientation that talked about that they've moved in the direction of tangible or capital assets yet. They haven't, it doesn't sound as though they've moved there yet, and which is fine. We've got a great company that does that for us. But anyways,
Yeah.
just an update from, we always walk away from there being excited. So were you just making a note to see if there's some way that, Councilor could get access to the, sort of the town
Because we
information?
have added a little bit of the assessment and that type of stuff onto our website in the past few years, so. But if we can open up a little more to the public and,
Yeah.
or, obviously for certain people, access to certain other areas.
Yeah, and the other really cool thing would be too, is that they did show where you can click on home.
Mhm.
And, but this is of course just for town consumption, it wouldn't be public.
Yeah.
You can click on a home and you have all the information on that home, all of the permits associated with it, everything that's happened with it. And also if it was at one point locked into our, if their stormwater was locked into our sewage system and it's remarkable the information that you can have on a home once you click on it. And so, I think that would have been just huge benefit when they were out there trying to hunt down who was, who's going into our systems.
And actually, our development officers, attended a training session on that too, since she's been here, and indicated she would, be prepared to do some work on that on our behalf as well, so.
Oh, fantastic. That would be great. That would be really good. All right, thank you. I didn't intend for us to go into such detail on that, but I'm
Thank you,
grateful
that
that
was
you're.
great.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Lawrence?
Yeah, just to touch base on my report, it feels there's like a lot of things, I'm seeing a lot of things, but I think that March was just a really long month, right? But, and everybody was very busy. But, so I did get to go to the Highway 3 Twinning Development Association. My report was coming up the next day, so I went, it was great. Very excited to be there, and I think they're very excited to have Culver's at the table again too, so, yeah, it was good.
Good, we met up with them at AUMA. Were you with me when we had
Yes,
the conversation?
Yeah, I believe that was Darren Davidson, and actually, I think it was the minister there. When you were,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad that we rejoined them, so. Good, all right, if everybody's got the reports in, thank you. Going forward, I'm gonna be a lot better at that, guys. Okay, if there's nothing more, we'll move on to external reports, and that is the Southwell Regional Initiative, the monthly report. Did we need to have any conversation about that monthly report at all? Everybody have a chance to read it? Was there any really big jump out that you felt should be brought to our attention, Councillor Ackerman?
The only thing is we got the quarterly meeting for the entire Southborough board later this month. So then the operational plan for next year is going to be kind of voted on at that time. One of the things that they were talking about removing was the Nobleford incinerator pilot project. Just because Nobleford is probably leaving Southborough or not rejoining. So with that project, it's taken a lot of work and they're trying to find money for the funding of the project itself. So they just got so many other things on the go that it kind of fell to the bottom of the totem pole, so to speak.
Okay.
I can see a benefit for the small towns, but again, it has to go between the whole board and the executive kind of said it was one of the things that was a little lower on the
All
priority
right,
list.
thank you for that. Can I entertain a motion, please, to accept external reports? Councillor Ackerman?
Yeah, I move that the external reports presented in this meeting are accepted.
All right, any questions on that or any more conversation? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's great, thank you so much. Okay, anything that we want to pull out of our correspondence? Or do we want to just scroll through quickly and anybody, I'm assuming that everybody's had a chance to read the correspondence? Was there anything anybody wanted to pull out and discuss? Sierra Howard, was there anything that you wanted to pull out and discuss of our correspondence?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The only one I'd comment on would be the Alberta Justice and Solicitor General regarding policing costs.
Yes.
Which the number, as far as the number is the number that we put in our budgeting, a year ago, like if you notice in our budget, we had 50,000 for last year, 75. So that's not a surprise. That is the number that we were told. I did hear a little bit recently that apparently the retro pay looks like it is being finalized, how it's going to be distributed. I'm not sure what's going to happen with that in terms of affecting us and beyond. But anyways, just that would be my only comment that the bill is here now, so.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So I mean, there's really no more conversation to have on this. We can't refuse to pay. We just have to write a check.
A lot of choice, yeah.
Submit it. Damn it. So the Alberta Recreation and Parks Association, the 2022 ARPA Leader Summit. You put that in our communication. Was there some thoughts that you had on that, or you just wanted it for our information?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Information, I mean, I think at one point, since council's election or whatever, there was talk about that being brought forward from, I think, a city representative or something. And there was some good, perhaps sessions at this. I know we did send our rec coordinator to it, I think, once in the past, previously. I mean, good stuff, but at the same time, felt that maybe there were more things at a local level that perhaps of more benefit maybe, because of our size at that point in time. Might be different now, I'm not sure, so. I'm not sure where Rec and Culture Committee or that scenario is at this point in time, but I just put it in there just because there have been a brief mention of it, so.
Yeah. Okay. It would have been something good for the chair of our Rec and Culture Committee to attend. Okay, now that he's not here, I can say that. Yeah. All right, thank you. Okay, anything else that anybody wanted to pull out? Good. If everybody's comfortable then, perhaps we'll just entertain a motion to accept correspondence. Councillor Boyd.
Okay, yeah, I move that the correspondence presented in the meeting is hereby acknowledged.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you, that's carried. Okay, our next items before us would be other business. First item there before us is the letter from Fox Creek. And Sia Hada, did you want to?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Again, similar to various letters we've had, whether it was the RCMP to the gun legislation and different ones. This is just a letter that they've written, obviously, and CC to all municipalities. And so I guess it's here for information unless you feel you want to write a similar letter in that regard. At this point, we've not written a letter in that regard on this particular subject. But.
So in essence, what the letter is asking is they're asking the commission to perform a review of the fees being charged on top of the actual usage fees. So I guess they're asking for two things. They're asking to look at the usage fees and they're asking for the fees on top to be looked at. I know that there's been a lot of buzz in our community, the concern about utility costs. I know that there's been a lot of buzz everywhere that people are not, they don't understand that this has been deregulated, right? And so that the costs are going up accordingly. It might be a benefit to our community if we did send a letter requesting, because all we're asking is, we're asking for action. We're asking for them to review, right? To just sort of review the usage fees and to review the fees that are being charged. Sort of like, what do they call the transmission fees and all the other fees that they are attaching to it. I don't think that would be unreasonable for us to send a letter in support of that. What are your thoughts on that? Sia Hada, do you think?
No.
Sorry, I'm just looking at the table and I'm looking at you as well. I'd like to have some of your thoughts as well, but.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Well, obviously, utility fees and the increase we've talked about, whether it was with our MP recently to, it's definitely been a thing on the news, that definitely the bills have been rising for reasons. So, it is a concern.
Yes.
So I guess it's not saying that this is necessarily going to change anything, but it is asking that commission to have a look at this and perhaps, in their consideration of these things, that they maybe look at some ways to limit it or perhaps.
Yeah, so the nature of the commission is they're bound to act on complaints, right? Sorry, Councillor Florence?
Oh, go ahead, you can finish.
No, I just, that they are bound to act on complaints. I mean, if entire municipalities are writing letters saying this is a concern to our residents, like we're finding that this is being, a challenge for our residents.
Right.
But, yeah. Sure, Councillor Florence?
Yeah, I guess when we were talking about it last time, the thing that came up was that it was something that you had mentioned, is that we get a lot of grants and stuff, from the Alberta government, and so, it'd be counterproductive to send a letter, to me, CCing the Honorable Minister Sonia Savage in this, is no different than what we didn't want to do with talking about federal taxes. And
Yeah,
so
this-
I would say we need to tread very carefully on this one.
Yeah. So we're asking for a review of the fees that are being charged right now, right? So who's benefiting from the usage fees on utilities? It's not the Alberta government, and the commission is an arm of the Alberta government,
Yeah.
right? So we're asking our partners,
Yeah.
right, an arm of our provincial
And so
government
I think we all have a healthy understanding of that, but
to
I just,
review rates being set by private utility companies.
and so I would not support writing a letter at this point.
I think, like has been said, like a lot of people's taxes or utilities have gone up, and it's nothing to do with their usage, right? And I think this letter addresses some of that, saying there's a lot of, fee accessing fees, and all those kind of other set charges that have just gone up, right?
Yeah.
In relation to all those other aspects, and I think that is what the utility commission is meant to be looking at completely. And so, and really, there's no recourse for us to be able to, even as citizens or anybody, to go after these companies. It has to be through the utilities commission who sets those rates, right? So
Yes.
I think it is.
Well, they set those rates based on the companies approaching and requesting that they set rates, and then they do so, right? And then when they receive sufficient complaints, they review whether those rates are reasonable.
Yeah.
Right?
So I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I would actually like to make that motion, that we do. Councillor Ackerman?
Yeah, I guess it kind of comes down to my thoughts with the last letter, is just with our focus and just kind of where we want to spend our energy, because like, I agree with what the letter is saying, but it is, like, if we go to write a letter, that is staff time that they have to look at to get it there, and it is taking away from their ability to do some of the tasks that they have, right? I just worry that, like, in the letter writing scheme of things, we could spend so much time writing letters for everything that we wouldn't be able to get our normal work done. So, I mean, while I agree with this, I don't think that writing a letter.
So you think that if our residents were sitting here before us right now, saying, you don't think they'd be saying to us, you're governing us? Part of your role is to ensure our wellness,
I do think that there's.
and paying excessive utility fees is impacting our wellness. If you have an opportunity to try to send a letter and seek a review of those utility fees, you think they would not consider that to be a good use of our time? And it's just a question I'm putting forward to you, right? That's all.
I think
I
that
don't
there's
want
enough
that
complaints
energy.
about the utility fees.
What's that?
I think that there's enough complaints about the utility fees in general. Everyone's talking about it, everyone knows about it. It's not something that isn't being talked about.
Exactly,
I
and
think
that's why I wanted to put forth the letter, because we hear our residents talking about it. We hear our residents being concerned about it, and they're complaining. We're not complaining of an action that the provincial government is doing or any level of government is doing. That's not what this complaint is. This complaint is that we have private utility companies that have been deregulated, and now they're setting certain fees that might be unreasonable. And we're asking the utility commission, that it is an arm of our government, our partner, to please review that. Right? I mean, that's what we're asking of them right now, right? So, I mean, and that's okay. I'll make the motion and we'll just see where it lies, right? So yeah, I write to write a letter in support of the or so write a letter requesting that the utility commission review what are we looking at here? Sorry. Just trying to find the wording here.
Write a letter in support
So, yeah, letter of support to
to address.
strongly encourage the commission to perform a review of fees being charged. Reviewing fees being charged.
I mean, can I speak to it?
Yes, please do.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, Councilor Hartman, that, I mean, there's so many things we could write letters about. In this case, we have Fox Creek who's already written a letter for us, we really just kind of need to put our name and our stamp on it, so. I think if it can in any way help our residents, find a better, rate for utilities, I think I don't think there's any, much time anyway, that it would take to do this, so I think it would, it's just adding our voice to that would be a short task, I feel like, so.
Certainly,
Just a
Councilor Hartman.
question with the Utilities Commission. You're saying that they're driven off of complaints. Do you know kind of what that threshold would be? Is it something where they'd have to receive an abundance of them, or is that something where there's just enough chatter about it without a formal request that they'll do something about it? Do you know how they've acted historically on that?
I don't know what their threshold is. No, I don't off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, on their website, they don't really provide the specifics either.
Let's take a look. Mm-hmm. Okay,
We don't ask, we won't know.
that's right, yeah.
Do we need to know that information? for the-
Trying to, no, we don't, but I wanted to see what I'm going down the rabbit hole now with Councillor Ackerman. He loves lots of information, and I appreciate that, and then you drive me to want to go seek out more information. Yeah, so we have a motion before us, in support of the Fox Creek letter, and you're right, I mean, it's just really replicating this letter with our names on it. And did anybody have any more discussion or questions on that? No? Okay, if not, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay, and the title is defeated, right? Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, so the next item we have before us, and that is Brody Preet and his letter. His letter of resignation with the Recreation and Culture Committee. Can someone make that motion?
Oh, sorry, I will move that the council of the town of Colders hereby accept the resignation of Brody Preet as the member at large appointment to the Rec and Culture Committee.
Okay, was there any questions or discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question, all in favor? Wonderful, thank you. Okay, next item before us is the Old Man Watershed Council donation request. There's a motion before us. Did anybody have any discussion on that or questions, or should we go straight to the motion on that?
Just a question on this. We've previously donated every year, is that correct? Or for the last little while?
Because we don't pay fees to them. Right, this is our.
It's, you're right, it's sort of like our fee, I suppose you'd say, but it's done in the donation fashion. Yeah, and so this is sort of renewing our membership with them as well, right? Okay, does anybody want to make that motion?
I can.
Councilor Poultry, thank you.
I move that the council of the town of Colders hereby authorizes membership in the Old Man Watershed Council for the year of 2022. Furthermore, that the town of Colders be also provided voluntary contribution of $1,308 for the Old Man Watershed Council for the year of 2022.
Thank you. Was there any discussion on this? Any questions? Anybody need any better understanding of the Old Man Watershed Council? To the town voters? No? Okay. I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, and opposed? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. Okay, next item before us is the Colehurst truck fill water supply agreement with the County of Lethbridge. Just a quick question to RK on that, if I might. I know that one of the things that we've brought up in the past was ensuring that those costs reflected all the resources that sort of go into them getting at the water, like our road and all that kind of stuff. Do we know that this is still sort of sufficient to offset some of those costs for us?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we set the rates every year, and I mean, obviously, it's not going to fix or upgrade or do anything to 45th Avenue or anything to that effect, but it is a fee that we charge, which we did adjust the rates a few years back in terms of making sure that the charge was, I believe, slightly more than what our residents were paying, just because of the fact that it was provided to out of town users. But yet at the same time, obviously, the county wants, you know, they adjust their rates over and above the rates that we charge as well, so, which, I mean, is, you say on that rate, is they're building in their fees, they pay our fee, and then they charge what they charge to the users that use it, but.
I know, and they generate revenue selling water, and I'm not sure that we generate revenue. I think what we do is we subsidize a little bit of the county by, you know, the actual costs associated with people coming on there and getting water means we're doing repairs to our road, and like there's frequent cleanup there, isn't there, from our public works guys. Certainly.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I mean, if we wanted, they would sell us it for basically $1, but talking with their director of operations, we don't want it.
No. No, we don't want to be responsible for maintenance on that. No.
I mean, they keep throwing that in every time we talk to them, every time, you know, director of operations talks to them. or I
Well,
talk to them.
we could buy it from them for $1 and then decommission it,
But it is.
right? And then just let them know that we don't want big water trucks on our road. Right?
Yes, there's that option, I suppose, but yeah.
Well, it's not much of an option. We want to support our neighbors. Councilor Florence?
So that's interesting though, because you indicated that it's a revenue generating thing, so I'm just curious as to why we wouldn't want to buy it for $1.
Certainly.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Basically, the upkeep, it's basically another billing that water billing that we would have to do because the number of users that use it, its cards or whatever, they have to be billed out accordingly as per usage on those cards. So it'd be another water billing deal that we would have to deal with. Complaints that if the cards aren't working after hours, before, after, during hours, you know, maintenance on the actual operation of the apparatus and that type of stuff. So, yeah, it's just.
So at this point, we lack the resources really to jump in and take.
Yeah, it just would be more of a headache from administratively to Public Works in terms of the operation of it as well.
So it's not going to make scads of cash.
No.
Okay, great, yeah. And they're still working well with us to keep like those big super bees and stuff off of it, right?
Yeah, the wording is in here such to the effect that, you know, if we request, we call, you know, they'll help us with that. If there is water rationings, obviously with the city or anything that comes up due to drought or et cetera, again, they'll work with us on that. So it's worked quite well, actually, the fellows that we work with them there, so.
All right, yeah, good. One of these days, though, we're gonna have to accommodate the cost for that down the road. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be going on about it, but.
Take a big jump in the rate.
Please. Yeah. So, those were just my questions. Thank you. Did anybody have any other questions at all or any more discussion on this? No? Okay, does someone want to make that motion then? Councilor Florence?
I move that Mayor Martin and Chief Administration, CAO Officer, CAO, oh my goodness, hello, are hereby authorized to enter into a Colehurst truck fill water supply agreement between Lethbridge County and the town of Colehurst in accordance with the terms and conditions as contained in the agreement.
Wonderful, thank you. Anybody have any other questions on that or no? All right, if there's no other questions, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried, thank you.
I haven't seen any water trucks over there at all.
You're not seeing any?
For a while. They were bad for a while.
They were bad when they were doing some of that drilling.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's
you
right.
know what? We have to adjourn this meeting first. Does anybody like to make a motion to adjourn, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Councilor Ackerman, thank you.
I move to adjourn the meeting at 9:40 PM.
Do you know what? You now see why you had this pressure to continue moving forward, of shutting everybody down. All in favor? Yay!
Sorry about that.
That's okay, that's all right. We just really, really wanted to be out of here. I don't know that we've been to the airport then, so why?
This is record setting.
Yeah.
What's that?
And there's some pretty tough to
Yeah.
pretty tough to agenda.
What's that number?
That's a lot.
Oh,
Nobody even
that's
texted
for,
this morning.
that's just last year.
I'm not asking you to hold my
This year's
hand.
130 or something?
I was like, it was like 10:05 or 9:05.
I'm gonna go to all the businesses.
Where am I
I'm gonna-
signing? Oh, it's right here.
Our own private
Yeah, I'll be
security.
here in a minute.
And then I'm gonna come to town and say,
You know what?
Hey,
This last COVID wave has completely decimated our staff. Completely decimated our staff. It's just.
oh, yeah.
Hey,
So this goes into the conversation.
had someone message me or
Did you?
In that regard.
I take that both at least.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth doing the citizens on patrol and all that.
You turning there
I
all
think
the
it
time.
volunteered for today, and all that.
Trying to get
I
people
know.
involved.
I'm wondering if you can mention that to the
At
bylaw.
4 o'clock in the morning, he wants to go over there.
And that's
I,
what
I told the guy, I was like, you know, she can't be here all the time.
I'll be back in September when they bring that back up, but utility.
So I just put in blue up, right?
Is that Johan?
In blue, L-I-E-U, right?
Yeah. That's where. Oh, he was. Just complaining about
See ya.
something. Oh, yeah.
Um,
Okay. Well, there you go.
It's true.
I've done my due
It's tree
diligence.
and everything else.
I've done my due diligence.
We're gonna go out.
I mentioned it to you and I could say,
Kevin said too, I mean, it's graded and done and everything, and it's stopped gravel as much as the next one.